Chapter 26:14. So you're one of us, too. This time, all the clansmen were excited. The elders of the Luo family who had rushed over upon hearing the news were like young people. They were even more excited than the younger generation of the Luo family because no one knew better than them how powerful their master was. He was the true savior of the Luo family. With their master around, the day when the Luo family returned to being a top family was not far away. Led by two grand elders, the elders of the Luo family followed behind Luo Lin. They all escorted Lung Ruoxue, the mother parasol tree, and a golden eagle that kept looking around curiously into the meeting hall. In the main hall, Luo Lin invited Lung Ruoxue to the main seat while he respectfully stood at the side. Lung Ruoxue did not stand on ceremony. After she sat down, her beautiful eyes glanced at the elders of the Luo family, but she realized that she did not know many of them. Where are the other members of the Luo family? Lung Ruoxue asked indifferently. The moment Lung Ruoxue said this, the entire Luo family did not know how to answer. After exchanging glances, Luo Lin said in a low voice with an ashamed expression, "Master, many people you've met have fallen in order to protect the Luo family. Luo Xian and his son have also fallen." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue furrowed her brows. She could clearly feel that the Luo family's overall strength had dropped by quite a bit. Thinking back, the Luo family had once been attacked by a few large families, and they had lost more than half of their members. After a few years of recuperation, they had finally recovered. She did not expect that the incident this time was even more serious than that time. At least, many of the powerful cultivators of the Luo family were not present at the scene. She used her divine sense to scan the area, but she could not find any traces of the powerful cultivators she knew about. They went to the divine realm to look for Master. One of the grand elders said, "He went to the divine realm?" Lung Ruoxue raised her brows. She didn't expect Luo Xian and his son to have gone to the god realm. It was fine as long as he was alive. "How long have you been gone?" "It's been 2 years," the grand elder continued. "Where are my godbrothers? They also went to the divinity together?" Lung Ruoxue did not notice the figures of her cheapskate brothers. "Yes. They went to the divinity with a few of our ancestors. They left this place for us." The grand elder continued to explain. Lung Ruoxue nodded and changed the topic. She glanced at the elders and said coldly, "Now, who can tell me why the Luo family is here? And when did Luo City change hands?" "AI. Let's talk." A certain elder sighed. However, just as he finished his sentence, he was ruthlessly interrupted by Lung Ruoxue. "Thanks, then make it short." Lung Ruoxue suppressed her anger and said, "Master, it's like this. The Luo family had been developing smoothly in the Haotian continent and successfully replaced the Sun family, becoming one of the 3 superfamilies along with the Lung family and the Lan family. However, a few years ago, Sun Tao suddenly returned to the Haotian continent with a group of powerful people. After they appeared, they began to plunder the territory and resources of the Haotian continent wantonly. Other than the Luo family, the Lung family, the Lan family, the Shadow League, and the Wanshan City were all attacked by them. Furthermore, each of them can take care of themselves." A certain grand elder noticed Lung Ruoxue's displeasure and hurriedly said, "The other party is using the principle of attacking at the same time and taking them down one by one. Their strength is also above ours, and we are not their match, so we can only hide here. Because of this, all the major families have suffered heavy losses, and our Luo family's losses are the greatest. Among the 3 superfamilies, although our family has the best resources, we have the least number of people. We are not as strong as the other 2 families, so our losses are very big. Except for Luo City, all the territory of the Luo family has been divided by the other party. If it were not for the timely rescue of the Green Dragon Mountain, I'm afraid that the people of the Luo family would not have been able to survive." After a pause, the grand elder could not help but shed tears. Everything that the Luo family had encountered had been regarded as a great humiliation by the Luo family. However, they could not take revenge on the enemy because of their current strength. This humiliation would always accompany them and cause them great mental pressure. Now, The younger generation of the Luo family regarded restoring the Luo family's former glory as their greatest wish and had been working hard to do so. Now that the master had appeared in person, the grand elder of the Luo family seemed to have seen the light of hope and was full of hope for the future. With master leading the Luo family, the day of their return to glory would not be far away. At the thought of this, the elders of the Luo family could not describe their excitement with words. All of them looked at Leng Ruoxue with anticipation. Sensing the emotions of the elders present, Leng Ruoxue asked in a neutral tone, "If I remember correctly, before I left the Haotian continent, I set up a defense formation for the Luo family. As long as the Luo family doesn't open the defense formation themselves, no one in the entire Haotian continent can break it. Do you have any explanation for this?" Leng Ruoxue was infuriated by the Luo family's current situation. She was even more furious than when she heard that Sun Tao and the others were the culprits. She was very confident in her own formation. On the Haotian continent, that defensive formation was like an iron wall. No one could break through it. However, not only had the Luo family lost Luo City, but they had also suffered countless casualties. How could she not be angry from embarrassment? Upon hearing Leng Ruoxue's question, the elders of the Luo family and Luo Lin all knelt down on the ground in unison. Luo Lin took the lead and replied, "Master, we've let you down. There's a traitor in the Luo family." "Who is it?" The moment Leng Ruoxue heard that, the anger in her heart surged up. The people she hated the most in her life were those who helped others while they were still alive. She would not let this traitor off easily. When the Golden Eagle heard Luo Lin's words, it couldn't help but interrupt. "A traitor? How could there be such a person? This kind of person should be dragged out and killed. He can't be allowed to remain in this world." As soon as the Golden Eagle finished speaking, both Leng Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree turned to look at it, causing the Golden Eagle to shiver in fear. It thought it had said something wrong again, so it said carefully, "I was just casually saying." After saying that, the Golden Hawk immediately lowered its head. "This time, you finally said a few correct words," Leng Ruoxue said, much to the Golden Eagle's surprise. The mother parasol tree also patted the Golden Eagle's head and praised, "Little guy, it seems like you're not that kind to just anyone." "Hee hee. Of course, I'm the most righteous Golden Eagle in the world. I'm born for justice and I must live to defend justice." After being praised by Leng Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree, the Golden Eagle's tail was so proud that it was about to curl up. Its words were also a little smug. When Leng Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree heard this, they both sighed. They knew they shouldn't praise this fellow, or else he would climb all over their heads. Back to the main topic. Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes turned to Luo Lin, signaling him to continue. Chapter 26:15. So she's one of us? 3. Luo Lin understood and quickly said, "It's Luo Xing'er." However, she was also deceived. "So it's her." Leng Ruoxue's eyes turned icy as she automatically ignored the last few words of Luo Lin. She would believe that Luo Xing'er was deceived because that woman was brainless. "Master, there's a reason why Luo Xing'er betrayed the Luo family. She had completely fallen for the other party's beauty trap. When Yuan, the man who took over Luo City, tried every means to get close to Luo Xing'er and promised to marry her. Luo Xing'er believed him and thought that she had found a rich husband. Therefore, she listened to his words and even told Wen Yuan everything about the Luo family. Wen Yuan, that greedy man, not only deceived Luo Xing'er but also many other members of the Luo family. Later, the master found out that Wen Yuan was not normal. He wanted to stop Luo Xing'er from contacting him, but it was too late. Luo Lin didn't dare to hide anything. At that time, Luo Xing'er was also blinded by love. In the end, he led a wolf into the Luo family's house and harmed them. Luo Lin sighed and continued. Although he had put it simply, Leng Ruoxue believed that this matter would not be as simple as Luo Lin had described it to be. However, she did not want to ask about the details. After all, the incident had already happened, and the tragedy had already happened. It was meaningless to pursue the process now. But there was one person she had to ask. Where is Luo Xing'er now? Leng Ruoxue asked indifferently. She's already dead, Luo Chen said and then added, the master did it himself. It's too easy for her to die. Leng Ruoxue said coldly. Master, Luo Xing'er received her retribution after she led the wolf into the house. She didn't end up well. In the end, she was tortured and executed by the master. At that time, the patriarch even wanted to die to atone for his sins, but we stopped him. Later, the patriarch brought a few experts of the Luo family and followed the Li brothers to the divine world, wanting to find master to atone for his sins. A supreme elder put in a few good words for Luo Xian. In his opinion, Luo Xian had always been a dutiful and responsible family master. He was also well liked by the clan members. However, because he had a troublesome daughter, he could not erase everything that he had done for the Luo family. Therefore, he really did not want the master to misunderstand Luo Xian. Don't worry, I won't blame him. Leng Ruoxue understood the elder's meaning and nodded. In fact, she knew very well what kind of person Luo Xian was. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the bloodline contract back then. What a pity! Luo Xing'er was a failure and her brain wasn't good enough. She deserved what she had now. After briefly understanding the process of the change in Luo City's leader, Leng Ruoxue then asked about the Luo family's current situation. The elders sighed and talked at once, and she finally had a rough idea. The Luo family's current situation was not good. How many people are there in the Luo family? Leng Ruoxue. Less than 100 people. Most of them are from the younger generation. Luo Lin said, embarrassed. Younger than you, I guess. Leng Ruoxue was well aware that the little fellows of the Luo family had just come of age. Their strength was low and they had little experience. It was impossible for them to achieve anything. Yes, I am. Luo Lin's face reddened unconsciously. The Luo family's current situation was really tragic. Back then, when their Luo family was jointly attacked by several major families, they had already declined to such a state. But this time, without a few hundred years, the Luo family could not even dream of recovering. 2 Mystique Venerable rank, 5 Mystique Emperor rank, and dozens of Mystique Monarch rank. Their strength is really weak. Leng Ruoxue glanced at the strength of the elders present and said impolitely. As soon as she said this, all the elders' faces turned red, especially the 2 grand elders, who felt their faces burning. In fact, according to the strength of these people, if they were placed in an ordinary family, they would definitely be powerful. However, the Luo family was already one of the 3 superfamilies in the Haotian continent. After the shocking change that led the wolf into the house, the strength of these people was not worth looking at. The elders knew that the Luo family had disappointed their master, but what else could they say? Luo Xing'er had already received her retribution. Luo Xian and his son had also gone to the divine world to seek their master's forgiveness. The Luo family could only choose to lie low and hope that one day, the younger generation of the Luo family would be able to support the Luo family and restore the glory of the past. Although this day might be long as there were young people in the Luo family, there would always be hope. Gather everyone in the Luo family. I have something to say to them. Seeing Luo Lin and the other elders blushing and not saying a word, Leng Ruoxue ordered. Yes. Luo Lin quickly responded and personally went to handle the matter. As for the elders present, after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, their hearts could not help but tremble. They could not understand what Leng Ruoxue meant. Could it be that she was planning to give up on them? Thinking of this possibility, all the elders' hearts sank. It was as if a heavy stone was pressing on their chests, and they could not breathe. Thanks. Not long after, Luo Lin came in with a group of youths and girls whose faces were obviously uneasy, but their eyes still had a trace of anticipation. These little guys had been secretly listening to the conversation in the meeting hall from a distance. They felt that their master seemed to be very unhappy, and they began to feel nervous and worried. They were afraid that their master would abandon them because they had heard about their master's personality from their elders. They knew that someone in the Luo family had disappointed their master. Although it was not their fault, they were still part of the Luo family, and this was something they could not deny. At this moment, they had never hated Luo Xing'er as much as they did now. The Luo family's future was originally bright, But because of Luo Xing'er's act of inviting a wolf into the house, the Luo family ended up in such a state. Although Luo Xing'e was blinded by love, these young men and women had long scoffed at love after learning from Luo Xing'er's mistakes. In their later education, the elders of their families also clearly told them that even if they loved each other, they could not do anything that would harm the family, or they would bear the consequences. One sentence, bear the consequences. In addition, they had personally experienced life experiences and the fickleness of human nature. It seemed impossible to make them believe the sweet words of love so easily. After these children entered the meeting hall, they all stood carefully and obediently, as if they were waiting for Leng Ruoxue to review them. They did not dare to move their hands and feet too much. When Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes swept across them, they were so nervous that their hearts started beating faster. They all lowered their heads in unison. The pressure that their master gave them was too great. They did not dare to look at their master directly. After taking a look at the aptitude of the little ones in front of her, Leng Ruoxue nodded slightly in her heart. The Luo family had raised them well. These children all had extraordinary aptitude and a pure temperament. Most importantly, their wills were strong enough. They could be considered as promising talents. From the looks of it, these little fellows were the Luo family's only hope. Don't be nervous. I called you here to hear your thoughts. Leng Ruoxue tried her best to make her voice as gentle as possible so as not to scare these children. As expected, when the youngest generation of the Luo family heard Leng Ruoxue's words, they all looked at her in confusion, then quickly lowered their heads. Then, one of the youths bravely raised his head and looked straight at Leng Ruoxue. I hope that one day, the Luo family will regain its glory in my hands. Are you sure you have the ability? With your current strength, I'm afraid you'll have to wait a long time for this day to come. Leng Ruoxue said on purpose. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. I believe that one day, I will be able to take back Luo City for the Luo family. The young man immediately shouted back when he was provoked. 10 years can change a lot of things. Your strength is growing, and so is your enemy. Leng Ruoxue reminded him with a faint smile. Then I'll work twice as hard as the enemy. Anyway, I'll take revenge with my own hands. The young man shouted at the top of his voice. What about you guys? Leng Ruoxue didn't respond to the young man's words and asked about the others. With someone taking the lead, the others also expressed their determination to work hard in their cultivation so that they could take back Luo City for the Luo family as soon as possible. The elders of the Luo family were excited again when they heard the passionate answers from the young men and women. They knew that with these young men around, the Luo family would one day regain its glory. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who was observing the crowd's actions from the side, said in a calm tone, "That's a good idea. Unfortunately, I don't have the patience to wait that long." When everyone heard this, they were all dumbfounded. What did Master mean by this? Were they really going to give up on them? The elders and the young boys and girls felt that their master seemed to be disdainful of them. Their hearts suddenly turned cold. It should be known that their master had always been their backbone, especially in the most difficult times of the Luo family. As long as they thought of their master's strength, they would become brave and full of confidence. At least with master around, the Luo family still had hope, and the next generation of the Luo family could grow smoothly. But now, master had thrown them into hell with a single sentence that said he was not patient enough to wait for them for so long. Many of the young boys and girls could not bear such a fact. In their sadness and disappointment, some of the children standing in the center of the meeting hall began to cry. Some of the more stubborn ones didn't cry out loud, but they were also choked up with tears in their eyes. This cry made the hearts of the elders present sour. Leng Ruoxue looked at the scene in front of her and could not help but feel embarrassed. Chapter 26:16. Difficult to enter the city gate? 1. Why are you guys crying? The golden hawk also asked curiously. It didn't understand why these human beings were crying. Luo Lin looked at the ignorant golden eagle with an aggrieved expression and sighed softly, but he didn't say anything. As a result, the golden eagle was even more baffled. It kept pulling Luo Lin and asking, "Little guy, tell me, what are they crying about? You humans are really strange. They actually formed a group to cry? Hearing the words crying together, Lung Ruox's mouth twitched. She didn't expect the Golden Eagle to have learned so many popular languages. She wondered who had taught it. Lung Ruoxue was convinced. She was getting calmer and calmer when the Golden Eagle said that it didn't belong to this world. When she was bored, she might even cooperate. However, as a native of the Hautian continent, Luo Lin didn't quite understand the Golden Eagle's words, but he still tactfully whispered to the Golden Eagle, "Master might be abandoning us." Really? Hearing this, the Golden Eagle's round golden eyes widened in disbelief. Then, it couldn't help but pat Luo Lin's head with its wings, saying, "You're thinking too much. How is that possible? You heard wrong." At least, it didn't hear that the fierce woman had any intention of giving up on them. "Did I really mishear?" Luo Lin asked as he pulled the Golden Eagle's wings, as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. "Yes, fierce women are easy to talk to. If you think that she really wants to give up on you, you can cry for her. She'll definitely be soft-hearted, hee. That's what I did. See, I managed to stay." When the Golden Hawk said this, it sounded very proud. It accidentally blurted out the truth. It didn't even realize what it had said, but Lung Ruox's face darkened when she heard them whispering. Alright. It turned out that the Golden Hawk was pretending to be pitiful at the entrance of the Azure Dragon Mountain. Unexpectedly, this fool also knew how to use his brain. Not bad. This child could be taught. Although the Golden Hawk had set her up, Lung Ruoxue was not angry. Instead, she felt that the Golden Hawk could still be saved. Even she found this kind of thinking a little unbelievable. In the end, she concluded that the Golden Hawk had taken advantage of her original beastie. Who asked her to be so soft-hearted towards beastie? From the looks of it, she could only comfort herself in this way. Otherwise, the fact that she had been tricked by a fool would definitely make her vomit blood. However, although the Golden Eagle gave Luo Lin the idea, Luo Lin didn't quite understand the meaning of its words. What did it mean by, "That's what it did"? His master wasn't someone that anyone could scheme against. Thinking of this, he silently sympathized with the Golden Eagle in front of him. Although this guy was very proud now, who knew how its master would take revenge on it in the future? Therefore, he definitely could not learn from it, as that would only make his master even more disgusted. It had to be said that Luo Lin's thinking was correct, because Lung Ruox's attitude towards humans and beasts were absolutely two different things. She could forgive some of the actions of beasts, but she had extremely high expectations for humans. Therefore, if any human dared to plot against her, they must be mentally prepared to bear the consequences. Luo Lin humbly accepted the Golden Hawk's advice, but he would never accept it. This way, he could not only not anger his master, but also not offend the Golden Hawk. After listening to the Golden Hawk's explanation, Luo Lin immediately admitted his mistake to Lung Ruoxue with a serious face. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue could not help but chuckle. "What did you do wrong?" "Ah." Luo Lin was stunned. It seemed like he... "Thanks, alright, stop crying. I'm not giving up on you. I just want to give you a chance to improve your strength." Without giving Luo Lin any time to react, Lung Ruoxue turned to the crying Luo family's next generation. This time, the entire Luo family was stunned. They stared at Lung Ruoxue, anticipating what she was going to say next. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue continued, "Your powers are too weak now. It's impossible for you to take revenge. And I can't possibly stay here for 10 to 20 years. That's why I said I can't wait that long for you. Now, I'll give you 3 months at most. After 3 months, I'll bring you all to take back Luo City. Are you confident?" "We're confident, but..." The young man hesitated. "The 3 months I said is only 3 months in real life. However, in my space, it is equivalent to at least 100 years. If you can't become Dark Supremes in 100 years, I can only say that the Luo family can't count on you in the future." Lung Ruoxue explained before the young man could finish his sentence. When everyone heard that 3 months was equivalent to 100 years, they were all excited. They knew that their master was omnipotent. If they were given 100 years, they could even ascend to the divinity, let alone become Dark Supremes. The group of young men and women immediately expressed their confidence in advancing to Mystique Venerable rank within 3 months and personally taking back Luo City. Sensing the children's blood-boiling excitement, the elders of the mystical emperor and mystical king could not sit still either. They unanimously expressed that they also wanted to improve and strive to advance to Mystique Venerable rank as soon as possible with their master's help. Just like that, Lung Ruoxue threw everyone, including the 2 Mystique Venerable rank masters from the Luo family, into the bangle to cultivate in seclusion and handed them over to Green Vessel to manage. The 2 grand elders of the Luo family took on the role of servants after everyone in the Luo family went into seclusion. They were prepared to personally take care of Lung Ruoxue and the Mother Parasol Tree's food and living arrangements. However, Lung Ruoxue and the Mother Parasol Tree did not need these 2 old men to take care of them. Hence, they rejected the 2 great elders' kind offer and left the Golden Eagle in their care. After the 2 great elders took over the Golden Eagle, Lung Ruoxue and the Mother Parasol Tree could finally heave a sigh of relief. However, from then on, the 2 grand elders found themselves in a tragic situation, especially during mealtime. From the moment they took over the Golden Eagle, they hadn't had any meat. Every time they wanted to improve their food and go hunting, the Golden Eagle would insist on following them. In the beginning, they even thought that bringing an eagle out to guard the hunt would be of help, but the facts proved that it was of help, but it was only helping in return. No matter if they wanted to catch rabbits or pheasants, the kind Golden Eagle would do everything it could to stop them. It even taught them that all lives were equal and that they could not kill the meaning of other lives just because they were hungry. That was not right. This happened once, twice. They were finally successfully brainwashed and began to eat vegetarian food. He had to be a vegetarian. With the Golden Eagle talking to them all day long, even bad people would be forced to turn over a new leaf, not to mention that they were not bad people. How could he continue living like this? The 2 grand elders sighed like this every day and sincerely prayed that someone would come to save them. At first, they still had a glimmer of hope for their master, but after thinking about it, since their master had thrown this eagle to them, he must have known some of the eagle's habits. As such, they gave up the idea of disturbing their master over such a small matter. Chapter 26:17. Difficult to enter the city gate. 2. The painful days passed day by day. Finally, after a month, someone came out of seclusion. Apart from Luo Lin, there were also a few elders who had come out of seclusion. In a month's time, they had successfully advanced to Dark Supreme. However, what touched them the most was that the 2 respected grand elders of the Luo family had actually come to welcome them in person. They were so excited that their eyes were filled with tears. This situation simply made Luo Lin and the others feel flattered. However, they had clearly misunderstood. The 2 grand elders were excited to see them, not because they had successfully advanced to Dark Supreme, but because they felt that someone had come to take over their suffering. The 2 great elders put the innocent-looking Golden Eagle into their hands and told them to take good care of it. They immediately teleported and disappeared. Their speed was as fast as if they were being chased by evil ghosts. When Luo Lin saw this scene, the joy that had yet to fade from his face was completely baffled. He truly felt that after not seeing them for a month, the 2 grand elders' mental state seemed to be abnormal. After instructing the elders to take good care of the Golden Eagle, Luo Lin went to see Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but nod in satisfaction when she saw that Luo Lin had advanced to Dark Supreme in a month and had successfully come out of seclusion. It should be known that the closed-door cultivation she had arranged this time was not just for cultivation. While she was cultivating with the Luo family, she had also sent them in batches to receive demonic training in the Dark Heaven. This was also to improve their mental state cultivation. After all, if their mental state cultivation could not keep up with their strength, something big would happen. Although Luo Lin's clothes were a little disheveled, he was in a good mental state. Lung Ruoxue was satisfied and felt that Luo Lin could be trained well. She sized him up and thought about the direction of his training. Luo Lin saw that his master kept looking at him but didn't say anything. He was so scared that he didn't know what to do. When Lung Ruoxue came back to her senses, she saw Luo Lin's pale face and was baffled. "Luo Lin, what's wrong?" Are you tired? Lung Ruoxue asked with concern. No, no. Luo Lin hurriedly replied, his little heart quivering. Could it be that master is up to no good again? It must be known that he had been tormented by his master for the past month. Although it was said to be for cultivation and to improve his strength, he really could not think of how his master could come up with so many ideas. It was too terrifying. Are you sure you didn't eat? If you were tired, I wanted to let you rest for a few days. Since you're not tired, you can continue your training in the illusionary sky. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Luo Lin wanted to cry but had no tears when he heard this. He still had to continue his training? Training in the illusory sky was definitely 100 times more difficult than training outside. He thought about it and said with an embarrassed look, Master, please let me rest for a few days. All right, but I can only give you 3 days. After 3 days, they'll send you back to the illusory heaven. This time's training will definitely be harder than the previous ones. You'd better be prepared. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Yes, I will. Luo Lin knew that his master was a man of his word, so he could only agree. Luo Lin immediately bade Lung Ruoxue farewell and returned to his room to rest. After he left, the mother parasol tree smiled at Lung Ruoxue and said, Girl, you're too strict with him. This little guy is not bad. Don't give him too much pressure. Motivation comes with pressure. Otherwise, how can they survive in the divine realm? I can't possibly be by their side all day, right? Lung Ruoxue smiled. You're right. Thinking of the cruelty of the divine world and Shui Air's powerful enemies, the mother parasol tree did not say anything more. Then, she thought of the golden eagle and smiled. The little golden hawk seems to be living a good life these days. It has become familiar with the small animals in the mountain. In that case, doesn't that mean that it has found the value of its existence again? Lung Ruoxue teased. Thanks, yup. However, the Luo family is going to be poisoned. With that golden eagle, they can forget about successfully catching any prey in the future. When the mother parasol tree thought of this, it could not stop laughing. Lung Ruoxue could not help but laugh. 3 days later, Luo Lin entered the illusory sky again. The golden hawk followed behind the elders like a little tail, not wanting to leave. A few days later, the elders were all going crazy. They wanted to hear Lung Ruoxue complain, but they didn't dare to. They could only swallow their anger and hide from the golden hawk to avoid it. For a moment, the entire valley was in chaos because of the group of people and the eagle. It was extremely lively. All of this naturally became the joke of the mother parasol tree and Lung Ruoxue. The two of them, who had bad intentions, watched with great interest. The elders who had been successfully killed by the golden eagle were forced to follow the example of the grand elder and hand the golden eagle over to the Luo family. In the next 2 months, the golden eagle was taken care of by many Luo family members. The Luo family members also learned about the golden eagle's kind nature, and the Luo family was speechless. What was even more tragic was that since the golden eagle appeared in the valley, the Luo family had all changed their diet. 3 months passed by quickly. All the members of the Luo family who were in seclusion had successfully come out. It was supposed to be a good thing to celebrate, but because of the golden eagle, the Luo family didn't have much hope for it. It should be known that when there was a celebration, there would be a lot of fish and meat. However, when they wanted to go hunting or catch fish, the golden hawk's words would appear in their minds. Suddenly, they all lost their interest in hunting. In the end, at the celebration party, everyone ate fruits and vegetables together. Seeing the lack of interest in the crowd, the parasol tree mother whispered to Lung Ruoxue, Girl, the Luo family has been brainwashed by the golden eagle. Look at them, they are all like frost-beaten eggplants. Yup. Senior, I've made a decision. Lung Ruoxue suddenly said in a serious tone. What's the matter? The mother parasol tree was very curious. I've decided to take in this golden eagle. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. The mother parasol tree was shocked when it heard this. It stretched out its hand and touched Lung Ruoxue's forehead. With a worried look, it whispered, Little girl, are you sick? Why did you suddenly make such a decision? She was horrified. I think this golden hawk has a bright future, especially in the aspect of ideological education. In the future, if anyone pisses me off, I will send this golden hawk to him and let it brainwash him. Lung Ruoxue said in all seriousness. Good idea. The parasol tree broke out in a cold sweat because of Lung Ruoxue's thoughts. At the same time, it couldn't help but pity the person who might anger Lung Ruoxue in the future. Such thoughts were too terrifying. This golden eagle was definitely invincible in a certain aspect. After the slightly dull celebration banquet, the next day, under the leadership of Luo Lin and the Grand Elder, the Luo family came to look for Lung Ruoxue collectively. They asked her with faces full of anticipation, "Master, when are we going to take revenge and take back Luo City?" Chapter 26:18. Difficult to enter the city gate. 3. They looked forward to it and decided to take revenge this time. Calm down. Before I take my revenge, I still need to make a trip to Wanshan City and the Lung clan. Lung Ruoxue comforted them when she saw their anxious looks. What about us? Luo Lin couldn't help but ask. After 2 hellish training sessions, he was full of fighting spirit and his blood was boiling. He couldn't wait to fight 300 rounds with the enemy. Of course you're coming with me. Lung Ruoxue replied with a smile. Master, we're all going? Then what about the Green Dragon Mountain? The Supreme Elder asked. The Li brothers had entrusted the Green Dragon Mountain to them before they left. If their departure caused the Green Dragon Mountain to become someone else's territory, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. You don't have to worry about the Green Dragon Mountain. I will set up a formation here. No outsider will be able to occupy this place. You don't need to come back here anymore. Lung Ruoxue said nonchalantly. Yes, after we take back Luo City, we must develop Luo City well. From now on, Luo City will never fall into the hands of others. Hearing this, Luo Lin immediately made a cautious statement. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she smiled faintly and said, Why? Do you want to develop Luo City well? Are you guys satisfied with a small city like Luo City? Ah. What does Master mean? The Luo family didn't understand. They grew up in Haoyan, and Luo City was the foundation of the Luo family. Only when Luo City was strong would the Luo family be strong. So, it was not wrong to develop Luo City well. Originally, I wanted to take you to the divinity to develop. Since you want to stay in the Haoyan continent, I won't force you. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the confused faces of the Luo family members and laughed evilly. Hearing this, the Luo family was stunned for 3 seconds before they went crazy. The Divine Realm. To the Divine Realm? Master said that he wanted to bring them to the Divine Realm to develop? Did they hear wrong? Everyone from the Luo family was so shocked by this huge surprise that they lost the ability to speak. Their eyes were shining as they stared at Lung Ruoxue without blinking, afraid that they had heard wrong. Finally, it was Luo Lin who asked, Master, are you really going to take us to the Divine Realm? Yes, I do have such an idea. I came back to the Haoyan continent to pick you up. I just don't know if you want to stay in the Haoyan continent or go to the Divine World with me. Lung Ruoxue had given them 2 choices. When everyone heard this, they immediately rejoiced. Master, we're willing to follow you to the Divine Realm. To any cultivator, the Divine World was a place that they yearned for. This was especially so when the Luo family had heard more than once from their elders that their master was in the Divine World. It was his master and another senior with unfathomable strength. The journey to the proud cold city passed by quietly as Lung Ruoxue and the Golden Eagle chatted. When they arrived at the proud cold city, Lung Ruoxue realized that the city gates were heavily guarded. Any cultivator who entered the city seemed to have to be checked before they were allowed to enter. In the distance, Lung Ruoxue listened to the questions the city guards were asking the people who entered the city. She felt that all 8 generations of her ancestors were about to be questioned clearly. Lung Ruoxue felt a chill down her spine. She had finally witnessed how nervous the proud cold city was. It seemed that Sun Tao had caused quite a bit of trouble for the Lung family. It was only when they stood in front of the city gates that Lung Ruoxue suddenly realized that the city guards were looking at them as if they were facing a great enemy. It seemed to be more serious than she had imagined. As Lung Ruoxue and the others had a large number of people, they were immediately treated as the prime suspects and were under strict interrogation. The person in charge of asking them questions looked like a steward, but it was obviously not the guard leader, because the guard leader was standing respectfully beside that person, and the first question that person asked them was actually what they were doing in the city? Lung Ruoxue was puzzled. What else could they do in the city? Of course, they had something to do. However, when Lung Ruoxue gave such an answer, the other party was obviously not satisfied. He turned to Lung Ruoxue and the others with a serious expression and said, "Due to your unknown identity and the large number of people, the proud cold city refuses to let you in." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue's expression turned ugly. What did he think she was doing here willingly? If it wasn't for old madam, she wouldn't have stepped into the Lung family's territory. Are you sure? No regrets? After taking a few deep breaths, Lung Ruoxue forced herself to calm down. She had to give old grand madam some face, right? What do I have to regret? That person didn't understand. Seeing this, the two grand elders of the Luo family had a headache. Looking at the situation, they would not be able to enter the city today if they did not report their background. Chapter 26:19. I heard your name is Lung Ruoxue? 1. After taking a few deep breaths, a grand elder of the Luo family put on a smile and said, "We're from the Luo family." They thought that the man in front of them would welcome them warmly into the city if they said the words Luo family. However, the man seemed to have never heard of the Luo family. Instead, he raised his face and said with his nose up, "What Luo family?" The Luo family's grand elder, who had introduced himself, was silent for a moment, but he still replied with a good temper, "The Luo family is the Lung family's ally." "Oh, you're talking about the Luo family. Wasn't the Luo family hiding in the Green Dragon Mountain? How could they still dare to wander around the continent under such circumstances? Were they not afraid that when Yuan would cause them trouble? It's a great shame for our Lung family to have such a useless ally." The man seemed to have a huge prejudice against the Luo family as he sneered. When the Luo family members heard the man's words, their faces turned red with anger. They had long known that some people in the Lung family looked down on them and thought that they were only qualified to be on equal footing with the Lung family because of their master. However, the Luo family had not asked for the alliance in the first place. Now that something had happened in the Haotian continent, the Luo family had fallen into decline, and the Lung family had immediately changed their attitude. Wasn't this a little too realistic? Although they had seen such cold and indifferent people after the Luo family was forced out of Luo City, the Lung family had a close relationship with their master. They really did not expect the Lung family to be so realistic. More importantly, the Lung family's treatment of them seemed even more despicable than the other families, because the Lung family's actions were clearly a slap in the master's face. "Master, this..." The grand elder of the Luo family ignored the words of a certain person from the Lung family. He did not dare to make any decisions on his own, so he could only turn to Lung Ruoxue for help. Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes glanced indifferently at the man who had just spoken. She questioned him coldly, "Is the Lung family trying to break the contract?" "Break what promise? Did I say anything?" The man played dumb. "You didn't say anything, you just refused to let us enter the city. I'll ask you one last time, are you going to let us in or not?" Lung Ruoxue could not be bothered to waste her breath on the other party and asked directly, "I've told you. You have a lot of people and your identities are unknown. The city refuses to let you in." The man repeated impatiently, "Didn't you hear us say that we're from the Luo family?" Lung Ruoxue sneered. "Just because you say you're from the Luo family, does that mean you're really from the Luo family? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid that's easy to fool?" The man said with an expression that said, "Don't even think about lying to me. Then what will it take for you to believe that we're from the Luo family?" Lung Ruoxue held her temper and asked again, "I can't believe it." The man said arrogantly, "Detestable. You're really looking for death." One of the youths from the Luo family could no longer tolerate the other party's rude behavior. He grabbed the clothes of the person who spoke and punched him in the face. "Thanks, you bastard." They might be able to ignore how he had humiliated them, but the other party clearly did not give their master any face. This was something that his uncle could tolerate, but his aunt could not. One should know that Lung Ruoxue was the idol of the Luo family. If it wasn't for the fact that their master was also a member of the Lung family, they wouldn't have allowed such a despicable person to mess around in front of them. It was a pity that this person didn't want to do well and had to provoke the demon in their hearts. As such, they couldn't blame him. If he could endure it any longer, he would be unworthy of being a member of the Luo family. After the hot-blooded and impulsive youth took the lead to attack, the other youths from the Luo family could not hold back any longer. They rushed to the side of a certain member of the Lung family who was an eyesore and collectively beat him up. After that, they quickly retreated back to the team in unison. His movements were so fast and smooth that the Lung family member didn't even have time to react before he was beaten until he was covered in wounds and on the verge of death. The Lung family's guards and the Luo family's elders were all dumbfounded. This was especially true for the elders of the Luo family. They had never known that the children of the Luo family had become so well trained. This was beyond their expectations. However, they were more gratified. This was the next generation of the Luo family. All the hopes of the Luo family were on them. Therefore, the more amazing the performance of these children was, the happier they were. At this time, they had long forgotten that it was the Lung family who had been beaten up. They only wanted to cheer for the actions of the Luo family's children. They were happy, but the guards of the Lung family were depressed. In the face of such a fierce and powerful young man, the guards of the Lung family were stunned and even forgot how to react. It wasn't until they heard someone from the Lung family wailing that they suddenly woke up. This master had been beaten up. Oh my God! What was this good? The person in front of him was not an ordinary member of the Lung family. It's finished. It's finished. This time, they were going to be out of luck. They would probably be severely punished for their poor protection. At the thought of this, all the guards looked at the Luo family members with resentment. In the next second, they received a look from the guard captain and all the guards swarmed forward, surrounding Lung Ruoxue and the others. However, Lung Ruoxue's side had more people than the Lung family's guards. Hence, the scene looked rather comical. Laughing speechlessly, Lung Ruoxue glanced at the guard captain and said, "You plan to besiege us with just this many people? You've injured our Lung clan. The Lung clan will never let you off." The captain of the guards said, pretending to be calm. In fact, he was extremely nervous. No matter how he looked at it, the other party's strength was above his. He was just putting on an act. He could only hope that the Lung family's punishment for him would be lighter. What's the big deal about injuring a member of the Lung family? Lung Ruoxue said disapprovingly after hearing the captain's words. You've injured a member of the Lung clan. The Lung clan will never let you off. When the captain of the guards heard this, he immediately roared in anger. Damn it, this girl in front of him really didn't put the Lung family in her eyes. Her actions were clearly an insult to the Lung family. Who knew that when Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only patted the guard's shoulder calmly and consoled him, "Don't be nervous, as long as you behave, I won't touch a single hair on you. By the way, I have not only beaten up the Lung family, but also killed them. I'm still fine." Lung Ruoxue's words were not only unbearable to the Lung family, but even the Luo family were speechless. Master was clearly trying to attract hatred. However, the members of the Luo family had more or less heard of their master's valiant deeds. Therefore, they were quite calm about this matter, except for some sympathy for the Lung family. They had calmed down, but the captain of the Imperial Guards had a lump in his throat, and he almost passed out. Not only that, the way he looked at Lung Ruoxue was as if she was a lunatic who had come out of nowhere. No normal person would dare to speak in such a manner in front of the Lung family. And even killed members of the Lung family? Who would believe this? Even if you're bragging, you shouldn't do this. Chapter 26:20. I heard your name is Lung Ruoxue? 2. The captain of the Imperial Guards had already treated Lung Ruoxue as a mentally ill patient. Hence, other than the momentary anger he felt when he first heard her words, the captain of the Imperial Guards quickly calmed down and consoled himself. Don't be calculative with a patient, it would only lower your own intelligence. At the same time, the captain's gaze towards Lung Ruoxue had an additional trace of sympathy, which made Lung Ruoxue confused. However, Lung Ruoxue did not want to think too much about it. She only asked indifferently, "Can we enter the city?" I can't. If these mental patients were allowed into the city, wouldn't the city be turned upside down by them? It had to be said that from a certain aspect, the guard captain's intuition was quite accurate. He deeply felt that if these people in front of him really entered the city, nothing good would come out of it, because these people did not look like people who would stay put. The Lung clan was in a period of turmoil, so it was safer to leave these dangerous people outside. However, the captain of the guards did not know how to refuse these fiendish men from entering the city. He did not have the same authority as the one who had been beaten up. If he really caused any trouble because of this, he would undoubtedly be the one to be blamed. After hesitating for a long time, the guard captain's expression turned awkward, not knowing what to say. At this moment, someone from the Lung clan, who had been beaten up, finally recovered a little. After consuming a healing pill, he jumped up and down again. Then, he pointed at Lung Ruoxue and the others' noses and shouted, "The proud cold city refuses to let you in, so get out of here immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." If one didn't look at his body that was trembling like a leaf in the cold wind, his voice would still be quite imposing. However, with his trembling body and swollen pig face, he looked as funny as he could be. Furthermore, even though his voice was rather loud, his heart was trembling with fear. Otherwise, with his personality, how could he possibly let Lung Ruoxue and the others off? However, at this moment, he hoped that he could send these gods of plagues away as soon as possible. Otherwise, his life would definitely end in the hands of these evil demons. Some people were just like that. They were born to bully the weak and fear the strong. They would only be more honest after being beaten up. However, the person in front of her was honest, but he still held a trace of hope in his heart. He was not honest enough, at least, that was what Lung Ruoxue thought. Otherwise, the other party would not have dared to point at their noses and tell them to get lost. Get lost? Why don't you get lost and watch me? After Lung Ruoxue heard this, she smiled faintly. Then she quickly kicked someone from the Lung clan. The Lung clan member, who had just regained his strength but was still in shock, was kicked to the city wall by Lung Ruoxue like a ball. He left a human-shaped hole in the wall and rolled into the city. This scene caused everyone present to be dumbstruck once again. The members of the Luo family were still fine. They knew that their master was very powerful, so they were still very calm in the face of such a scene. However, the guards of the Lung family were dumbfounded. How could this be possible? As the city guards, they knew very well how strong the city walls were. However, a human-shaped hole had been made on the extremely strong walls by a weak woman. It was unbelievable and illogical. However, this was obviously not the end. In the next minute, everyone present heard another crack. Kacha! The sound of something breaking could be heard. Then, the sturdy city wall slowly fell down in front of everyone. The guards of the Lung family were petrified when they saw this even more terrifying scene. Thanks, since the proud cold city doesn't welcome us, we won't be annoying. Let's go. After doing all this, Lung Ruoxue clapped her hands as a gesture and ignored the petrified Lung family guards. She turned to the Luo family members and said, when the Luo family members heard this, they could not help but feel embarrassed. Today, they had finally witnessed their master's power. Was it appropriate to just leave like this after breaking their defense? However, they could not disobey their master's orders. Hence, everyone from the Luo family followed Lung Ruoxue's lead stiffly. Just as they were about to leave, an extremely powerful force attacked them from behind. A voice was heard at the same time, "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Lung clan?" Lung Ruoxue turned around unhurriedly. With a light wave of her hand, she smacked away the other party's chi force. She then squinted her beautiful eyes and looked at the person who had arrived. What's wrong? We haven't seen each other for a few years and you're pretending to be strangers now? Her words were definitely provocative, and after the other party heard his words, he gritted his teeth in anger. Can't you be more normal when you come back to the Lung family? The person who spoke was Lung Xiaoqing, one of the greatest ancestors of the Lung clan. He had never thought that the person who came to cause trouble in the proud cold city would be Lung Ruoxue, the god of killing. When he saw Lung Ruoxue, he was both happy and troubled. He was happy that the Lung clan had gained a powerful support, but the troubled one was that the person in front of him did not treat him as a member of the Lung clan. To put it bluntly, she was not an obedient descendant, and would not treat him with the respect of an ancestor. By normal, he meant that Lung Ruoxue could have taken the normal route. There was no need for her to destroy the Lung clan city wall as soon as she returned. It was a critical time. If the enemy took the opportunity to attack the proud cold city, it would not be good news for the Lung clan. I wanted to come back normally, but someone in the Lung family wouldn't let me. After hearing Lung Xiaoqing's words, Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. What's going on? Lung Xiaoqing's eyes were like daggers as she asked the petrified guard captain. Hearing Lung Xiaoqing's reprimand, the captain of the royal guards suddenly came to his senses. He then looked at Lung Xiaoqing with a respectful expression and said, Old ancestor, it was young Master Kun who said that they had a large number of people and their identities were unknown, so he refused to let them enter the city. What the guard captain was thinking was that he couldn't take the blame for young Master Kun. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to withstand the anger of the old ancestor. More importantly, he didn't expect the old ancestor to know this goddess of killing. In that case, wasn't it a big mistake to stop her from entering the city? When he thought of this, he was so nervous that his little heart started to beat wildly. Lung Yichun? Get Lung Yichun to come out. The moment Lung Xiaoqing heard that it was Lung Yichun's doing that had angered this little girl, he immediately ordered in a rage. Originally, he had wanted to build a good relationship with this girl, but who knew that the Lung family would always have such blind things to annoy her? This fact made him angry and annoyed. Not long later, Lung Yichun, who was covered in dirt and bruises, was brought in. The moment he saw Lung Xiaoqing, he immediately knelt on the ground and strongly requested old Grand Madam to seek justice for him. He said that he was being bullied. When Lung Xiaoqing heard this, he was so angry that he kicked him again. With such a brainless descendant, he really had no idea how many of his hair had turned white from worry. On the other hand, Lung Yichun, who was kicked, had a look of disbelief and bewilderment on his face. This made him, who had always thought that he was pampered in front of the old ancestor, extremely puzzled. Chapter 26-21. I heard your name is Lung Ruoxue? 3. Old Grand Madam. Lung Yichun was dumbfounded. Never in his dreams would he have thought that the old ancestor would actually help an outsider. Is this how you guard the city gate? The Lung family dares to refuse to enter the city? Lung Xiaoqing's eyes were filled with rage as he roared at Lung. The Lung family? Who is it? I've never refused the Lung family's entry into the city. Lung Yichun said with an aggrieved expression. So, how would he dare to reject the Lung family from entering the city? Wasn't this courting death? Especially at such a sensitive time, if the Lung family really filed a complaint against him, his good days in the Lung family would be over. Towards this, Lung Yichun had thought it through quite clearly. He knew that it was okay for him to bully outsiders. At least, outsiders could not complain to the old ancestor. However, he could not bully his own family as he pleased. Otherwise, it would not be good for him to offend his own family. Girl, you never said you were a member of the Lung family? Looking at the aggrieved Lung Yichun, Lung Xiaoqing believed that he wouldn't dare to lie. This matter could be a misunderstanding. In his opinion, it was fine as long as this matter was not intentional. Hence, he turned to Lung Ruoxue. You didn't say that you're from the Lung family, so you're going to be refused to enter the city because of the large number of people? Although I didn't say who I was, my subordinates said that they were from the Luo family, so they were also refused to enter the city. Lung Ruoxue said nonchalantly. Yes, I told you that we are from the Luo family, but this young Master Kun doesn't believe me. He even looks like he doesn't like our Luo family at all, as if he looks down on us. I wonder if the Lung family wants to end their alliance now." The grand elder of the Luo family continued Lung Ruox's sentence. "Lung Yichun." Lung Xiaqing's face darkened when he heard this. However, Lung Yichun still tried to defend himself and quickly said, "Ancestor, it's a critical time now. They said they were from the Luo family, but they didn't show any solid evidence. How can I believe them? You said that you wouldn't believe that we're from the Luo family, so what does it matter if we can't produce any evidence? In short, even after we said that we are from the Luo family, your Lung family still chose to refuse our alliance. May I ask the ancestor of the Lung family, does the Lung family want to end our alliance with the Luo family?" After the grand elder of the Luo family heard Lung Yichun's explanation, he asked again, "Grand Elder Luo, this is all a misunderstanding. I apologize to the Luo family on behalf of the Lung family. Please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to the same level as this stupid pig." Lung Xiaoqing replied with a sincere tone. Seeing that the Lung family's ancestor, who was the most senior in the family, had apologized to him in a humble manner, the grand elder of the Luo family also knew when to stop. After all, the Lung family and his master still had a blood relationship, so he did not want to make things difficult for the Lung family. The matter of Lung Ruox's refusal to enter the city was temporarily forgotten under the Lung clan's intentional fawning. After being personally welcomed into the Lung family's main residence by Lung Xiaoqing, Lung Ruoxue and the rest moved into the falling snow garden that they had once stayed in. Lung Xiaoqing, who was familiar with Lung Ruox's personality, similarly did not arrange for anyone to serve them. Lung Ruoxue did not mind this, but even if she did not mind, it did not mean that no one would come to cause trouble. The person who was looking for trouble was Lung Yichun, who had just been severely scolded by the Lung family's old ancestor. Although Lung Yichun was scolded, he did not receive any other punishment. Hence, the self-righteous him thought that the other party's position in old grandmadam's heart was not as high as his. Hence, he naturally came over to show off. In addition, he knew that Lung Ruoxue was his junior, so the fear he had towards Lung Ruoxue and the rest naturally disappeared. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree were sitting in the garden. The mother parasol tree felt that Lung Jian's scenery was really not bad and was pulling Lung Ruoxue along to admire it with her. When she saw Lung Yichun who suddenly appeared in front of them, the mother parasol tree raised her brows and asked indifferently, "Is there something?" Lung Ruoxue did not even look at Lung Yichun. Looking at the mother parasol tree, Lung Yichun's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He was slightly regretful that he did not notice the existence of this great beauty at the city gate earlier. As for Lung Ruoxue, even though she was also beautiful, she had obviously angered him. Hence, he was not interested in her. At this moment, he was here to make Lung Ruoxue feel uncomfortable. Hence, he could only give the mother parasol tree the cold shoulder for now. Then, he turned to look at Lung Ruoxue and said arrogantly, "I heard you're Lung Ruoxue?" "Yes, I am." Lung Ruoxue nodded. "How audacious! Why don't you kneel when you see your elders?" Suddenly, Lung Yichun let out a loud roar. His voice was so loud that it even startled a group of beautiful ornamental birds in the garden. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked the mother parasol tree on purpose, "Senior, are there any elders here?" "I don't know. Who knows how the Lung family's seniority is ranked?" The mother parasol tree held back her laughter and said in agreement. At the same time, she mourned for this Lung Yichun in front of her for 3 minutes. This was really a case of forcing one's way into hell when there was no door to heaven. From what she knew, Lung Ruoxue was very famous in the Lung clan and was known as the god of slaughter. Hence, she could not understand. Could it be that this fellow in front of her had never heard of Lung Ruox's fearsome reputation? He had already annoyed the little girl before, and now he still dared to come and find trouble with her. How bold was this person? Thanks actually, it wasn't that Lung Yichun had not heard of Lung Ruox's great name. It was just that when Lung Ruoxue was displaying her divine might in the Lung family, Lung Yichun happened to not be at home. Hence, even though he knew of her existence, he had not personally experienced those things. Hence, he still felt that the Lung Ruox's reputation was definitely not as good as the rumors. Moreover, even though he had offended Lung Ruoxue at the city gate, the old grand madam did not do anything to him. From this, it could be seen that Lung Ruox's status in the Lung family was not that high. With this thought in mind, he was even more fearless. Therefore, he, who didn't learn his lesson, had just been taught a lesson and now he was looking for a beating again. Your elder. Lung Yichun was listening to the conversation between Lung Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree. Seeing that the two of them had obviously ignored him, he reminded them angrily and brought the mother parasol tree along. My surname isn't Lung. The mother parasol tree said with a smile. May I ask which sect are you from? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. I'm Woody's uncle, so you guys have to call me uncle too. The moment he heard this, Lung Yichun immediately put on the airs of an elder and raised his head to look at Lung Ruoxue in a show of force. Uncle? Are you dreaming? Even if you want to acknowledge your family, you don't have to do this. The mother parasol tree laughed evilly. After she finished speaking, she immediately lifted Lung Yichun up as though she was lifting a little chick. Lung Yichun was so frightened that he immediately cried out, What are you doing? Quickly put me down. Why were women so rough these days? Lung Yichun was incomparably indignant. Being lifted up like this was a complete disgrace to his manliness. Hence, he was instantly enraged. However, the mother parasol tree did not give him the chance to show off his might. With a gentle wave of her arm, Lung Yichun immediately turned into a shooting star and was thrown out. When they heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground in the distance, the two of them calmly continued to drink tea, chat, and enjoy the scenery. Ha! Little sister, long time no see. At this moment, Lung Shuang's forthright laughter rang in Lung Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree's ears. The two of them looked up and saw Lung Shuang and Lung Woody walking in from outside. Sister, have you seen enough? Lung Ruoxue glanced at the mother and son, who seemed to be eager to see the world in chaos, and smiled. Sister, don't be angry. We didn't show up because we wanted to give you guys a chance to act freely. Otherwise, if we just watched him being bullied by you guys and didn't do anything, he would definitely complain to us. Lung Shuang said helplessly. We haven't seen each other for a few years. Why has elder sister's courage become smaller instead? Lung Ruoxue raised her brows as if she couldn't believe it. It's hard to explain in a few words. Ever since Lung Yichun returned, we've all been living in an abyss of suffering. Lung Shuang complained. Was that guy Lung Yimin's younger brother? Your uncle? Lung Ruoxue asked Lung Wudi after a moment of curiosity. It's a clan brother with a very distant relationship. The mother and son looked at each other and sighed. Then why are you so afraid of him? Lung Ruoxue could tell that the mother and son in front of her were helpless towards Lung Yichun and became even more curious. He has caught the old ancestor's eye and has been very favored in recent years. Lung Shuang explained. No wonder. He didn't even receive any punishment for provoking me. Lung Ruoxue said as she came to a sudden realization. It seemed that in this day and age, people with backing were indeed not easy to deal with. However, she didn't care if Lung Shaoqing would punish Lung Yichun because of the previous incident. Anyway, as long as that fellow was blind enough to find trouble with her, then he couldn't blame her for not giving the Lung family face. That's good too. We don't have to be bored. The mother parasol tree replied nonchalantly after hearing Lung Ruoxue's words. This is... Lung Shuang finally had the opportunity to ask about the identity of the parasol tree mother tree. A senior I met in the divine realm. Lung Ruoxue explained simply. She did not want to reveal too much about the identity of the parasol tree mother tree. Lung Shuang and Lung Wudi immediately bowed to the mother tree. Senior, this junior has been impolite. You're welcome, the mother parasol tree smiled gently. She had a good impression of the mother and son. Seeing that they had a good relationship with Shuer, she was naturally willing to give them some face. After the four of them had gotten to know each other, Leng Shuang enthusiastically did her part as the host and ordered people to serve quite a lot of good wine and food. They chatted and laughed, and only then did Leng Shuang ask about the purpose of Leng Ruox's trip. Chapter 26-22. Are you sick? 1. Seeing that Leng Shuang had finally asked the main question, Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and said, I came to the Haotian continent for a tour and found out that it doesn't seem to be very peaceful. How is the Leng family doing? Leng Ruox's question was obviously a deliberate attempt to see how Leng Shuang would answer. When Leng Shuang heard this, she was suddenly in a dilemma. She thought that Sister Shuo was blaming the Leng family for not lending a helping hand to the Luo family and had come to question them. So, for a moment she did not know how to answer. Say that the Leng clan's situation is not good? However, the Leng family was still living peacefully in the city. How could they say that the Leng family was doing well? Since he was not bad, why did he turn a blind eye to the Luo family's misfortune? Leng Shuang thought about it for a moment and felt that no matter what she said, it might annoy little Sister Shui. Thinking of this, she didn't dare to speak. Seeing that his mother was in a difficult position, Leng Wudi had to take over the difficult task. He sighed and said, I'm sure you've seen the current situation of the entire Haotian continent. At present, the members of the Leng family are all staying in the proud cold city, and we rarely walk on the continent. Leng Wudi's words were flawless. He did not reveal the Leng family's current situation, nor did he complain too much to Leng Ruoxue. He also fulfilled the old ancestor's request of not telling Leng Ruoxue the entire situation. He thought that Leng Ruoxue would be understanding and let this matter pass, but who knew that Leng Ruoxue was not satisfied with his answer. She laughed coldly and said, Leng Wudi is indeed the young master of the Leng family. Your answer is so formal. However, since you've said so, I'll believe you. I was going to help you if you were in trouble, but it seems unnecessary now. I'm sure your Leng clan will be able to handle the situation. After listening to Leng Ruox's words, the mother and son looked at each other with bitter smiles. They knew that they had still angered this little girl who loved to hold grudges. Now, this little girl was truly angry. It was all their fault for being so full of themselves. Both mother and son were extremely regretful and tried to appease Leng Ruox's anger, who knew that the other party would not give them a chance to speak at all. Leng Ruoxue even went straight to the point. Sister, you've changed. We've grown distant. When she said this, Leng Ruox's beautiful face was filled with disappointment. When Leng Shuang heard this, she felt extremely upset. How could she have wanted this? However, she could not disobey the words of her old grand madam. Just as Leng Shuang was filled with regret, Leng Ruoxue, who had finished speaking, had already turned around and returned to her room. The parasol tree mother sighed and said, You two can go back first. We also need to rest. Looking at the blazing sun hanging high in the sky, the mother and son were quite helpless. This was really a good excuse to send off their guests. The sun hadn't even set yet, but they were already going to rest. They were quite helpless about this. Sighing, Leng Shuang and Leng Wudi left the snow garden gloomily. After watching the mother and son leave, the parasol tree mother tree walked into the room and glanced at Leng Ruoxue, who was sitting on the chair and playing with the golden eagle. She smiled and said, Shuer, are you really angry? No, I didn't have much hope for the Leng family, so why would I be angry? Leng Ruoxue said nonchalantly. But the mother and son just now took it seriously. The mother parasol tree said helplessly. Yes, I know. In the Leng family, this mother and son are the only ones I like, but they don't dare to tell me the truth for the sake of the Leng family. Although it was their own choice, and they have no obligation to tell me anything about the Leng family, I am still a little disappointed in them. Besides, I think I have shown my sincerity by coming to the proud cold city. For the sake of our ancestor, I can't just sit by and do nothing about the Leng family's difficulties. But now it seems that I was thinking too much. They even thought that I was here to cause trouble. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. In fact, she could still understand Leng Shuang and her son's thoughts of standing on the family's side. After all, the present was not like the past. Now, the Leng family needed to be united. However, understanding did not mean approval. Perhaps the Lung family valued their face very much, but she really did not think that the Lung family's face was worth much. After hearing Lung Ruox's words, the mother parasol tree could not help but laugh. Shui, you really don't think you're here to cause trouble? Thanks, of course not. Lung Ruoxue replied matter-of-factly, and as she spoke, she playfully snatched the fruit that the golden eagle was holding tightly in its arms. The two of them began a tug-of-war. The golden hawk turned to Lung Ruoxue and said angrily, "Scoundrel! Scoundrel! You're so bad, how could you snatch my fruit? If I'm not mistaken, I'm the one who gave you this fruit." Lung Ruoxue said with a half-smile. "Since you've given it to me, it's mine. How can you take it back?" The golden hawk said angrily and looked at the mother tree for help. The mother parasol tree looked at the two fellows in front of it and was really speechless. She sighed and ignored the golden hawk's plea for help. She turned to Lung Ruoxue and said, "Girl, you just arrived and you already smashed their city walls. You can't blame me for that." Lung Ruoxue did not feel guilty at all and continued to play with the golden eagle. Sighing heavily again, the mother parasol tree gave up on preaching to Lung Ruoxue and turned around to sit at the side to watch the show. Meanwhile, Lung Ruoxue and the golden eagle were even more excited. At the same time, Lung Shuang and Lung Wudi, who had just returned from Lung Ruox's place, were invited over by Lung Xiaoqing. She stood uneasily in the old ancestor's study room. Both mother and son did not say a word, and the atmosphere in the study room was so heavy that it was hard to breathe. After a long time, Lung Xiaoqing looked deeply at Lung Shuang and Lung Wudi before he slowly said, "What did that girl say? Old ancestor, what do you mean?" Lung Shuang raised her head and looked at Lung Xiaoqing with a confused expression. She wanted to play dumb, but she did not know if she could fool him. "What's that girl going to do this time?" Lung Xiaoqing asked through gritted teeth. "He said he was here for a tour in the Haotian continent." Lung Shuang said honestly. "What else?" Lung Xiaoqing asked again. "No more." Lung Shuang blinked her eyes and said with an innocent face, "No more? Aren't you two good sisters? Didn't she say anything else to you?" It was clear that Lung Xiaoqing did not believe Lung Shuang's words. From what he could remember, that girl would never be so cold to anyone who caught her eye. "No, she has already turned against me," Lung Shuang said honestly. Actually, she really did not want to accept the Grand Madame's mission to test Lung Ruoxue. Now, the test was not successful, and their sisterhood was over. What? Why did she fall out with you? Is she really that heartless? Lung Xiaoqing's expression turned ugly when he heard this. Chapter 26-23. Are you sick? 2. It's not that she's heartless, it's just that she thinks we're too distant. Lung Shuang said indifferently. How could this be? Didn't you treat them well? As far as he knew, Lung Shuang and her son had moved the best ingredients of the Lung family to the falling snow garden. If this was considered as being estranged with her, then what was considered as not being estranged? That hateful girl was really hard to serve. This news gave him a headache. We did treat her well, but she thinks we're not sincere. Lung Shuang said helplessly. Great ancestor, you didn't want us to reveal the current situation of the Lung family, so we didn't dare to say anything. We only said that the members of the Lung family are all staying in the proud cold city and rarely walk around the Haotian continent. She thought that answer was too official, so she was annoyed. Lung Wudi added after receiving a look from his mother. What's there to be annoyed about? Could it be that she really wanted to hear that our Lung family's status had fallen by 1,000 feet and was not as good as before? We have to rely on her help to restore the Lung family's prestige? Lung Xiaoqing roared, his face ashen from anger. Faced with the old Grand Madame's questioning, Lung Shuang and her son did not know how to respond. If they could, they really wanted to say, yes. To be honest, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. The Lung family really needed Lung Ruox's help now. Unfortunately, on the one hand, the great ancestor was concerned about the Lung family's face, and on the other hand, he wanted Lung Ruoxue to take the initiative to do something for the Lung family. This way, the Lung family would not be too embarrassed. But was this possible? They were all very clear about Lung Ruox's temper. If you want her to help you, you must first show your sincerity, right? However, the old ancestor was very conflicted about this. He wanted to save his face so much that he had to suffer. Now, such a powerful helper not only did not intend to help, but also wanted to watch the fun and not care about the matter. It could be imagined how depressed the Lung family would be. And now, the first person to be depressed was naturally the Lung clan's greatest elder. According to Lung Xiaoking's thoughts, Lung Ruoxue should have heard that Sun Tao had found a group of experts from God knows where and caused chaos in the Haotian continent. Many clans and powers were affected, and the Luo clan was the one who suffered the most. As the master of the Luo family, since Lung Ruoxue had returned to the Haotian continent, it was natural for her to stand up for the Luo family. And while she stood up for them, she could also cooperate with them. Wouldn't that be a happy ending for everyone? This way, the Lung family would have Lung Ruoxue, a powerful ally, and they would not need to seek help from Lung Ruoxue, who had never treated them as part of the Lung family. They could also get rid of Sun Tao and the others. What a perfect ending this would be. It had to be said that Lung Xiaoking's idea was pretty good. This was because in his heart, whoever spoke first at this moment would mean that the other party was weaker. In a relationship with a strong person, the weaker party would naturally have a lower right to speak. This was definitely something that Lung Xiaoqing, the head of the Lung clan, would not want to see. From what he knew, even though Lung Ruoxue didn't acknowledge the Lung family, in terms of bloodline, she was still a member of the Lung family. This was something that no one could deny. Since she was a member of the Lung family, he wouldn't pursue her unfilial behavior of not acknowledging the main family. At this time, shouldn't she properly display her responsibility as a junior? It was precisely because of these thoughts that he hoped Lung Ruoxue would help him, but at the same time, he didn't want to cast aside his status as an elder and lower his pride to beg a junior. Unfortunately, he had forgotten that Lung Ruoxue had no sense of belonging to the Lung family and had never admitted that she was a member of the Lung family on Haotian continent. It would be impossible for her to take the initiative to show concern for the Lung family's current situation. Thanks as long as Lung Ruoxue was conscious, such a thing would never happen. Although she would give her ancestor face and come to the Lung family to take a look, it was absolutely impossible for her to take the initiative to help the Lung family. And now, the Lung family seemed to not need her help, so she was very happy. In this way, he could go back and explain to his cheap ancestor. After all, he didn't need him to meddle and he couldn't just force himself to move forward, right? She couldn't do such a thing. Right now, Lung Ruoxue's attitude towards the Lung clan on the Haotian continent was neither to take the initiative nor to reject them. The members of the Lung clan on the Haotian continent, especially those from Lung Xiaoking's lineage, who were led by him, naturally hoped that Lung Ruoxue would take the initiative to lend a helping hand. But this could only become their beautiful dream. After Lung Xiaoqing found out that Lung Ruoxue had angered Lung Shuang and her son, he was so troubled and depressed that he could not eat for a few days. He had been sighing all day long. Finally, after he sighed countless times, Lung Xiaoxiao, who had been pretending to be invisible, could no longer take it. He pulled up Lung Xiaoqing, who was in a dilemma, and roared, "Big brother, let's go. I'll bring you to that little girl. Why are you looking for her?" Lung Xiaoqing looked at Lung Xiaoxiao warily. "Go and tell her that the Lung family needs her help now," Lung Xiaoxiao said honestly. "You want me to go beg that bad girl?" Lung Xiaoking's face turned black instantly. "What else can we do? Do you expect them to take the initiative to come to our door and be ordered around by us? Big brother, wake up. Stop dreaming, all right? That girl isn't someone who can be manipulated by others." Lung Xiaoxiao's words were rather direct. He did not wish for his elder brother to have any hope that she would take the initiative to ask him or send herself to his door. Based on his understanding of Lung Ruoxue, that was simply impossible. Furthermore, based on what he knew, she had been living happily in the falling snow garden for the past few days. She had been living a carefree life. In fact, he was very clear about his eldest brother's thoughts. It was nothing more than the fact that all the younger generations in his family couldn't compare to Lung Ruoxue. It wasn't that they couldn't compare to her in one aspect, but that they couldn't compare to her in all aspects. His intelligence, wealth, and resources were inferior to others, and his abilities were even worse. In front of Leng Ruoxue, even he, the elder ancestor of the Leng family, felt inferior, let alone his eldest brother, who had always been proud and thought that his descendants would live up to expectations. It could be said that Leng Ruoxue's sudden appearance had extinguished all of eldest brother's sense of superiority. Among the three brothers, the eldest brother's descendants were the most abundant and filled with talents, followed by his. The second brother's descendants were the least. There was only one Leng Qianye on the Haotian continent. However, the appearance of Leng Ruoxue and her two grandsons had dulled the brilliance of the Leng family's descendants. They could not even shine a little. This fact was a huge shock to his big brother. Even he was envious, jealous, and hateful. After all, who didn't want such a capable descendant? But they didn't. However, it was fortunate that Leng Ruoxue had the bloodline of the Leng clan. This was something that no one could deny. In front of Leng Ruoxue, the members of the Leng family who knew her true strength were both afraid and loving of her. Especially after they found out that all the members of the Leng family who had a history with her were no longer in this world, their fear of Leng Ruoxue had risen to an unprecedented level. However, at the same time, they also knew that if the Leng family wanted to regain its glory, they could not do so without Leng Ruoxue. Therefore, most of the clan members showed their goodwill towards Leng Ruoxue's arrival. According to their thinking, it didn't matter whether she took a fancy to them or not. What was important was that they didn't want to offend the goddess of killing. With this thought in mind, unless there was something important, most of the Leng clan members wouldn't disturb Leng Ruoxue. Chapter 26-24. Are you sick? 3. As for those who couldn't open their eyes, they would just turn a blind eye and treat it as sending toys to Leng Ruoxue. Otherwise, it would be quite boring, right? It was precisely because they had such a thought that the entire Leng family turned a blind eye to Leng Yichun's provocative behavior. However, they didn't dare to let that fool Leng Yichun off too easily. Otherwise, if he really angered Leng Ruoxue, she would definitely make a fool of herself. Leng Xiaoxiao's eyes were fixed on his elder brother, who was in a dilemma. In an instant, he had already gone through the situation in his mind. Anyway, he had already thought it through clearly a long time ago. He just did not know when his elder brother would come around. Seeing that Leng Xiaoqing was only frowning and not saying anything, Leng Xiaoxiao could only continue to persuade her, "Big brother, I know that you also want to be on good terms with that girl. Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken the initiative to become an ally with the Luo family. So, don't be so prideful. Let's go and talk things out with that girl. She won't sit by and do nothing about the Leng family. Who said I want to be on good terms with her? I'm her elder, shouldn't she be the one to please me? Also, what's wrong with being an ally of the Luo family? That was me giving face to Xiao Yu. I didn't want to lower my head. You have to be clear about this." Leng Xiaoxiao's words finally caused Leng Xiaoqing to have a slight reaction. However, the words that came out of his mouth were filled with the smell of gunpowder. Hearing this, Leng Xiaoxiao could only ignore the smell of gunpowder. He consoled his elder brother and said, "All right. You only became an ally of the Luo family because you wanted to give second brother face. You're Leng Ruoxue's elder, so she has to come and beg you. Is it okay for me to say this? Big brother, previously at the city gate, didn't you already put down your pride and took the initiative to apologize to the Luo family for Leng Yichun's actions? Why are you quarreling now?" Leng Xiaoxiao could not understand. What was Big Brother trying to do by being so willful? Could it be that he was counting on that little lass Leng Ruoxue to coax him? Wasn't this too unrealistic? In fact, he was right. Leng Xiaoqing really thought that way. Even though he had given the Luo family some face at the city gate, this did not mean that he could forgive Leng Ruoxue for ignoring him and him as an elder. Hence, after he had arranged for Leng Ruoxue and the rest to stay in the snow garden, he did not appear because he hoped that Leng Ruoxue would take the initiative to visit him. Who knew that a few days had passed and the little girl was living in the snow garden with good food and drink? She did not have any intention of meeting Leng Xiaoqing at all. It was as if they had forgotten about his existence. As such, the proud and arrogant Leng Xiaoqing was naturally infuriated. However, it was not convenient for him to share his little thoughts with outsiders, so he could only sulk on his own. In Leng Xiaoxiao's eyes, his behavior was naturally seen as a quarrel. Now, Leng Xiaoqing, who had obviously reached a certain level of bickering, immediately retorted when she heard Leng Xiaoxiao's words. Who said I was being difficult? Who said that? Am I not that little girl's elder? Shouldn't I be the one to greet the elders? I should. But she's not an ordinary junior. At the very least, I don't dare to treat her as a junior. Big brother, I can't see through Leng Ruox's current strength. Leng Xiaoxiao sighed softly. He had finally revealed this cruel truth, hoping that his big brother would be able to recognize the truth as soon as possible. Even though Leng Ruox's current strength was only at the level of a mystical king, anyone with a discerning eye would know that she had long gone to the firmament, so it was naturally impossible for her to only be at the level of a mystical king. In the world of cultivators, the strong had always been respected. If Leng Ruoxue did not have a trace of bloodline connection with the Leng family, they would probably have to address her as senior. But now, at least Leng Ruoxue had shown some friendliness, and the two sides were still equal. Since that was the case, Leng Xiaoxiao felt that there was no need for them to worsen the relationship between the two sides for the sake of so-called face. After all, Leng Ruoxue was not the one who needed to rely on them, but they needed her. Leng Xiaoxiao's words made Leng Xiaoqing fall silent once again. That's right, Xiaoxiao was right. Leng Ruox's abilities had probably reached a level that they could not imagine. He naturally knew how monstrous that girl's aptitude was. Logically speaking, he should be happy that his family had such a talented descendant, but he just couldn't be happy at all. Throughout Leng Ruox's growth, the clan had never given her any help. As such, what right did he have to ask her to contribute to the clan? Just because of that wisp of illusory bloodline? Putting himself in Leng Ruox's shoes, he would also feel that this reason was too far-fetched. He also knew that Leng Ruox's visit to the Leng family this time was definitely for Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu had a good descendant. At that moment, Leng Xiaoqing was extremely jealous of Leng Xiaoyu. He even felt that he would be willing to exchange such a huge number of descendants for Leng Ruoxue. Unfortunately, that was impossible. Forget it, I've been hoping for too much. That girl has never been an obedient descendant and has never thought of her as a member of our Leng family. Since that's the case, why should I still consider myself an elder? That would only make that girl loathe us even more. After a moment of silence, Leng Xiaoqing spoke slowly. Thanks, in fact, he had already known that this would be the case, but he had been unwilling to admit it. Now, he had no choice but to admit it. Xiaoxiao had already made it so clear, and he could not continue to lie to himself. Big brother, it's good that you can think this way. In reality, it doesn't matter if Leng Ruoxue is willing to admit her relationship with us or not. Her ties with us will never be broken because as long as second brother is around, she can't ignore our Leng family. Second brother isn't someone who doesn't care about brotherhood, so as long as we don't make any excessive requests, Leng Ruoxue will always be our greatest backing. Leng Xiaoxiao analyzed. Do you think that Leng Ruoxue will become our backing? Leng Xiaoqing asked in surprise. He had thought that even though Leng Ruoxue could not be his junior, she would at least be able to interact with him on an equal footing. However, Xiaoxiao's words clearly placed Leng Ruox's status above the Leng family's. Was this appropriate? Big brother, don't tell me that you don't feel relieved when you see that little girl? Leng Xiaoxiao asked instead of answering. Leng Xiaoqing pondered for a moment, then nodded gloomily. He could not deny that the moment he saw that detestable little girl, he was indeed rather happy. He even felt as if his savior had arrived. It's precisely because of this that we've unconsciously treated Leng Ruoxue as our salvation. At least with her around, it's as if we have a pillar of support. It's not as if Big Brother isn't aware of what that girl has done back then. Before she was a dark supreme, she had dared to turn the Sun family upside down. Now that she's gone to the firmament for a period of time, I'm afraid her destructive power is even greater than before. Leng Xiaoxiao's face showed a hint of sympathy towards the end of his sentence. Of course, he was not pitying the Lung family, but the unlucky Sun Tao. I agree with what you've said, but isn't it a bit of an exaggeration to say that she's our backer just because of this? Lung Xiaoqing was still reluctant to admit the truth, so he asked with uncertainty. Big brother, let's face reality. Even if Lung Ruoxue can't be our backing now, she will definitely be in the future. You have to trust my intuition and judgment. Lung Xiaoxiao sighed softly. Alright, I believe you, so what should we do now? Lung Xiaoqing was out of ideas. Of course I'm going to show some concern for that little girl. Lung Xiaoxiao said with a smile. Lung Xiaoyu nodded upon hearing this. She was finally willing to put down her pride and go meet Lung Ruoxue. At this moment, an uninvited guest happened to visit Lung Ruoxue's snow garden. This uninvited guest was none other than Lung Yichun, who had been thrown out of the courtyard by the mother parasol tree time and time again but had appeared in front of them again and again with an unyielding attitude. Lung Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree could not even be bothered to look at Lung Yichun, who was reporting to them almost every day to pick a fight. Anyway, this fellow would always question them with the same few words every time he came, and there was nothing new about it. They had heard him so many times that their ears had grown calluses. Of course, when they were sick of him, the mother parasol tree would display its might and throw him out of the courtyard like a chicken. This had simply become a fixed show for the past few days. The Luo family was numb to watching such performances every day. However, if Lung Yichun did not show up one day, they might not be used to it. In the garden, Lung Yichun, who had been here for a while, saw that he was completely ignored and started to howl at the top of his voice. Lung Ruoxue, you're too rude as a junior. I'm your elder, how can you ignore my existence? He said the same thing again. However, Lung Ruoxue was clearly in a good mood today. Even though she still did not raise her head to look at the other party, she was willing to respond. What do you want me to do? Lung Ruoxue said lazily. Of course, you must respectfully invite me to sit down, then warmly greet me and sincerely listen to my reprimand. Lung Yichun said as if it was a matter of course. After saying these words, he immediately felt a few more gazes with unknown meanings. Although he didn't know what they meant, he chose to ignore them. You're not sick, right? After listening to Lung Yichun's high-pitched speech, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but hold her forehead and said in a speechless manner. Chapter 26-25. It's hard to guess Xue Er's thoughts. 1. Of course I'm not sick. I'm in good health, and the food is delicious. Lung Yichun didn't hear the sarcasm in Lung Ruoxue's words as he patted his chest and shouted. Hearing what he said, the onlookers couldn't help but burst into laughter. The hawk laughed so hard that its stomach hurt. It rolled on the stone table in the garden to show its good mood. Since you're not sick, why are you talking nonsense? Lung Ruoxue said with a straight face. Her face was filled with confusion. Nonsense? Who is talking nonsense? You wretched girl, are you talking about me? Lung Yichun finally reacted and his face turned ashen from anger. He then jumped up and put on a stance as though he was going to fight to the death with Lung Ruoxue. This was definitely slander. Lung Yichun was furious. The consequences? Of course, Lung Ruoxue would not care about it. At least you're not so stupid that there's no cure. Lung Yichun, I'm talking about you. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. The infuriating expression on her face was really infuriating. It was undeniable that with Lung Yichun, she had once again found the feeling of making one vomit blood from anger. This made her feel a little more comforted. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but glance at the golden hawk, who was laughing so hard that its belly was shaking. This little guy was definitely not normal. He could be considered her nemesis. You, how dare you? Lung Ruoxue, you actually dare to address your elder by his name. This is unfilial. I am going to punish you with the family law. Just you wait. Lung Yichun was so angry that his face turned green and white, then white and green again, and his words were even more incoherent. Elder? What right do you have to be my elder? You want to punish me with the family law? What a joke. Lung Yichun, when are you going to bring the family law? It'll be waiting for you. Lung Ruoxue replied calmly. Lung Ruoxue, do you even have any respect for the Lung clan? After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Lung Yichun was so angry that he didn't know what to say. He held it in for a long time before he finally managed to squeeze out such a sentence. He was thinking that this wretched girl from the Lung family should be afraid now, right? In this world, no one could ignore the power of a family clan, and Lung Ruoxue was no exception. Unfortunately, his plan was not bad, but it was destined to fail. If it was someone else, they might have been afraid of the clan, but the person he had met was Lung Ruoxue. A Lung Ruoxue who had never placed any importance on the power of her family. As such, his threats were naturally of no use. His words were no different from scratching an itch through one's boot. To Lung Ruoxue, it did not even hurt. I really don't have any. Lung Ruoxue was silent for a moment before she replied honestly. A good child should not lie. You unfilial descendant of the Lung family. I will report this to the forefather and have you expelled from the Lung family. Lung Yichun was really furious this time and he couldn't help but speak without thinking. Immediately, everyone heard a roar. How audacious! After these two words appeared, two figures appeared in the garden. When the grand elder of the Luo family saw who it was, he felt that the situation was getting more and more chaotic. How was he going to resolve this? He didn't know if his master would be blamed by the Lung family's old ancestor. Thanks, it had to be said that the thinking of the grand elder of the Luo family was still very traditional. Although he had heard that the relationship between his master and the Lung family was not very harmonious, in his opinion, no matter how bad the relationship was, his master was still a member of the Lung family. This was an undeniable fact. In that case, it was not a big problem for his master to say that he did not take the Lung family seriously in private. However, once this matter was put on the table, he felt that no matter what the outcome was, it would not be good for his master. One must know that in this world, the power of a clan was absolutely powerful. No one could ignore the power of the family and be unaffected by the influence of the family. The strength of the family also had endless benefits to the powerful. Therefore, logically speaking, the grand elder of the Luo family definitely did not wish for the two sides to fall out completely. At the very least, it was fine to maintain a respectful relationship on the surface. But now, the situation of being respectful to each other was probably impossible to maintain. Just as the grand elder of the Luo family was feeling a little worried, Lung Yichun had already dashed in front of Lung Shaoqing and Lung Xiaoxiao and complained, "Old ancestors, this Lung Ruoxue is really unfilial. She actually doesn't respect our Lung family. She just admitted it herself." Then, he turned to glare at Lung Ruoxue and roared, "Lung Ruoxue, do you dare to deny it? Why should I deny it?" Lung Ruoxue gave a faint smile as her beautiful eyes glanced at the person who had arrived. "My two ancestors, you've heard it. Lung Ruoxue has admitted it herself. I suggest that we expel this unfilial descendant from the Lung family. Our Lung family cannot have such a descendant. Otherwise, it will affect the Lung family's reputation." Lung Yichun said insensibly, completely ignoring the two Lung clan's old ancestors' faces which had already turned black. When the Luo family members who were watching from the side saw this scene, they simply felt some sympathy for Lung Yichun. However, looking at the expressions of the two elders of the Lung family, they could not tell whether they were angry at Lung Yichun or angry at their own master for being unfilial. This was really a difficult question to understand. "Get out of here." Lung Shaoqing suppressed her anger and said coldly. Lung Yichun nodded and turned to Lung Ruoxue. "Lung Ruoxue, did you hear that? The old ancestor wants you to get out of here." Looking at Lung Yichun's appearance of a fox exploiting a tiger's might, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh. She sighed helplessly and said, "Are you sure he was talking to me? Who else could it be if not you? It can't be me, right?" Lung Yichun said in a matter-of-fact and self-righteous manner. "It's possible." Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. "You," Lung Yichun pointed at Lung Ruoxue. He was so angry that he could not speak. Suddenly, he felt his body sink, and then he felt like he was flying. Then, Everyone heard a plop and a heavy object fell to the ground. The crowd was no stranger to such a voice. However, the person who did this had given them quite a shock. The person who had kicked was not Lung Ruoxue or the parasol tree. It was Lung Xiaoqing, the Lung clan's greatest ancestor. After kicking Lung Yichun out, Lung Xiaoqing suddenly felt very pleased. No wonder the people around this girl liked to kick people so much. It felt good indeed. Patting off the dust on her hands, Lung Xiaoqing smiled faintly and said, "Little girl, you don't have to take that idiot's words to heart. I'll punish him later." "There's no need for punishment. Wouldn't it be better to keep it as my toy?" Obviously, she didn't take Ling Yichun's words to heart because she didn't think of herself as a member of the Lung family. This was a fact that everyone in the Lung family knew, but Lung Yichun didn't know about it. This clearly explained the problem. Chapter 26:26. It's hard to guess Xue Er's thoughts, too. Alright. Lung Xiaoqing nodded helplessly. In reality, in his heart, Lung Yichun was just a clown who was used to please Lung Ruoxue. He was only afraid that Lung Yichun's words would make Lung Ruoxue angry, so he specially said that. But now that he saw that Lung Ruoxue did not take Lung Yichun's words seriously at all, his heart felt sour again, and it was especially unpleasant. However, Lung Ruoxue did not have the time to care about how Ling Xiaoqing felt. She asked directly, "Is there something you need? Can't I come to see you if I have nothing to do?" When Lung Xiaoqing heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he was a little unhappy. "We don't visit without a reason. Our relationship doesn't seem to be good enough for us to visit each other, right?" Lung Ruoxue deliberately put on a suspicious expression. As expected, Lung Xiaoqing was a little angry after hearing this. Stinky girl. Bad girl. He had already lowered himself to visit, but the other party actually thought that he had bad intentions. This was really too much. Lung Xiaoqing could not help but curse in his heart. However, he really had a reason for looking for this little girl. When he thought of this, he suddenly became listless. So, bad girl? He was really too bad. Couldn't he leave him some face? Lung Xiaoqing was depressed. Unconsciously, his gaze towards Lung Ruoxue carried a trace of resentment. His gaze, on the other hand, gave Ling Ruoxue a shock. Did I see wrongly? The Lung family's first ancestor was actually looking at her like she was a mistreated wife? Lung Ruoxue was a little shocked. Did she do something? Lung Ruoxue, who was reflecting on herself, was completely frightened by Lung Xiaoqing's resentful gaze. Fortunately, Leng Xiaoxiao noticed his eldest brother's strange behavior and pulled at the hem of his clothes in time. Only then did Leng Xiaoqing finally return to normal. However, just these few seconds were enough for Lung Ruoxue to be on tenterhooks. If you have something to say, just say it directly. Please don't look at me like that, I'm scared. Lung Ruoxue shivered and couldn't take it anymore. You still no fear? Lung Xiaoqing gritted her teeth when she heard that. I must know. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head seriously. She felt that she was too honest and did not even know how to lie. However, Lung Xiaoqing's expression turned even uglier after he heard what she said. How come I didn't see it? Lung Xiaoqing was speechless. This girl is really too shameless. Then I can only say that you don't have enough eyes. After Lung Ruoxue finished speaking seriously, she turned her gaze elsewhere, not looking at the man who was starting to exude endless resentment again. Leng Xiaoqing was so angry that he was speechless. He realized that this girl's ability to anger people to death had grown again. Thanks, cough cough. Leng Xiaoxiao, who was at the side, noticed the damn oppressive atmosphere. After coughing twice, he took the initiative to speak to Lung Ruoxue. Little girl, we indeed have something to discuss with you. Upon hearing this, Lung Ruoxue turned her beautiful eyes back to Leng Xiaoxiao and said, if you have something to say, say it. It's like this. The entire Haotian continent has been turned into a mess by Sun Tao and the others, and all the major families have suffered great losses. So, we hope that we can join forces to get rid of Sun Tao and the others and return peace to the Haotian continent. Leng Xiaoxiao tried to find the right words. Return the Haotian continent to its peaceful state? What does it have to do with me whether the Haotian continent is peaceful or chaotic? After Leng Ruoxue heard what Leng Xiaoxiao had to say, she asked with a puzzled look on her face. One should know that she was just a passerby in the Haotian continent. Now that her base camp was in the divinity, she naturally did not have to care about the Haotian continent's affairs. Therefore, she really had no intention of being a savior. However, after Leng Xiaoxiao heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he misunderstood. He thought that Leng Ruoxue didn't want to get involved in this matter, so he advised her with a heavy heart, "Little girl, although you are no longer in the Haotian continent, your power is still here. Getting rid of Sun Tao and the others will be beneficial to their future development. So I hope you can consider it carefully. This is not only for the whole Haotian continent, but also for the Luo family and your Wanshan city. What if I say that I plan to move the Luo family and Wanshan city to the divinity?" After Leng Xiaoxiao finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue smiled and told him this shocking news. As expected, Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao were both stunned when they heard that. Never in their dreams would they have thought that Leng Ruoxue would not want her subordinates to stay in the Haotian continent. Could it be that this girl had returned this time to bring her subordinates away? If that was the case, she really didn't need to care about Haotian. However, without her help, it would be even more difficult for them to get rid of Sun Tao than to ascend to heaven. When they thought of this, the two of them frowned. Observing their expressions, Leng Ruoxue threw out another piece of shocking news. "If you guys want to leave this place, I can take you guys with me." His words successfully brought Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao back to their senses. "We can't leave. If we leave, what will happen to the Leng clan?" The two of them said in unison. "The Leng clan." Before they could finish their words, they could not help but widen their eyes and look at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief. Did this girl mean that she was going to bring them along with her? Not just the two of them, but the entire Leng family? Was it like this? Thinking of this possibility, Leng Xiaoqing asked with uncertainty, "You mean the Leng family will leave the Haotian continent with you?" "Yep. This is the will of my cheap old ancestor. However, it's up to you whether you want to leave or not." Leng Ruoxue said indifferently, casting this matter aside completely. She didn't want the two people in front of her to think that she had any deep feelings for the Leng family, which was why she wanted to bring them along. In fact, that was impossible. If our Leng family leaves, what will happen to the Haotian continent? Leng Xiaoqing couldn't help but ask. The Leng family's power on the Haotian continent was the result of countless years of development. Once they left, it meant that they would have to start over again. In addition, the divine world was a rather cruel place. How could they protect themselves when they arrived there with their strength? At that moment, Leng Xiaoqing considered many things. Like Leng Xiaoyu, he had returned from the godly mainland, so he naturally knew better than anyone who had never been there how cruel it was. However, when he thought about the Luo family and Wanshan city, he felt that since Leng Ruoxue dared to say that she would leave with her subordinates, she must have a way to protect herself. That was why he was in a dilemma. The Haotian continent has been reshuffled, and the Leng family will no longer exist. Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. "Wouldn't that be too easy for Sun Tao and the others? If we leave, we'll just give them some space?" At the thought of this, Leng Xiaoqing felt a little indignant. "Don't tell me you want to live in the Haotian continent forever and fight for territory with Sun Tao? Are you so short-sighted? No wonder the Leng family is so oppressed by Sun Tao. Why don't you think about it? You've been living in the Haotian continent, and you'll have to leave here sooner or later. Your strength won't improve much here. Or do you want to stay here and wait for your death? Everything in the Haotian continent, no matter how noble, is just a fleeting cloud in the divine world. The divine world is a place where ambitious people should fight for. Don't you want to fight for a place in the divine world?" Leng Ruoxue said with a look of disdain. Chapter 26-27. It's hard to guess Xue Er's thoughts. 3. Her words were not polite at all. However, Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao did not have any temper at all when they heard her. It was undeniable that what Leng Ruoxue said was the truth. Although the immortal realm was cruel, it was still a place that everyone yearned for. On the Haotian continent, so what if one became a top family? Wasn't he still beaten up by the people Sun Tao brought back from the divine realm and forced to hide in the proud cold city? They didn't dare to step out of the city for fear of being attacked by Sun Tao and the others. They had had enough of this kind of sullen life. In a short moment, their minds immediately became clear and they thought it through. The divine world was the biggest stage. They could not lose their will to fight in the divine world just because of its cruelty. Such an idea of not retreating was definitely a great taboo for cultivators. More importantly, Leng Ruoxue was right. In the Haotian continent, their status seemed to be noble, but their strength had not improved at all. If this continued in the long run, they would really be sitting around and waiting for death. After thinking it through in an instant, Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao immediately looked at each other and made a decision at the same time. We agree to bring the Leng clan with you. After Leng Xiaoqing had thought it through, she immediately became decisive and spoke without any hesitation. Little girl Shuer, when we reach the immortal realm, you have to take care of us more. Leng Xiaoxiao added with a smile. Even though his tone sounded like he was joking, this was indeed what he truly thought. If they really moved the entire Leng family to the divinity, the Leng family would probably have more to rely on Leng Ruoxue. I can only guarantee that the Leng family is safe within a certain area of the divine world. Therefore, I hope that you can restrain your clansmen. If someone insensible provokes a big figure that even I can't handle, I can't do anything about it. Leng Ruoxue put the ugly words out first. The important person she was referring to was naturally Wu Cheng. However, she didn't want to say it out loud in case she scared the two of them. As long as we can have a safe place for the Leng family to slowly develop, that's enough. Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao nodded at the same time. They were already very satisfied with Leng Ruoxue's progress. However, at this point in time, they still didn't know that the God world that Leng Ruoxue was talking about was a completely different place from what they had in mind. Once the decision was made, Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao felt a sense of relief. It was as if a huge rock had been lifted off their shoulders. At this moment, they thought of Sun Tao and the rest and felt that it was nothing. Those who were going to develop in the divine realm could not limit their vision to the Haotian continent, which was just a small place. After they had let go of their grudge with Sun Tao, Leng Ruoxue had brought up the matter of Sun Tao again. The two of them were stunned for a long time before they said, "Shuer, didn't you say you didn't want to argue with Sun Tao?" "Did I say that?" Leng Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and said with an innocent look. In her heart, she couldn't help but wonder, did she look like such a kind person? Ah! Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao were completely speechless. What did this girl mean by this? Previously, when they had said that they would deal with Sun Tao together, didn't Shuer clearly show no interest in it? Now that they had decided to leave the Haotian continent with Leng Ruoxue, she wanted to deal with Sun Tao. What was this? Was he teasing them? The two of them were quite depressed about this. They felt that Shuer's thoughts were very difficult to guess. Leng Ruoxue glanced at their expressions and laughed evilly. "Do you think he'll be kind enough to let go of someone who bullied my subordinate? But didn't you say before that?" Leng Xiaoxiao could not help but want to remind him, but he had only spoken half of it when he tactfully swallowed the second half of his sentence. "I'm just saying that I'm a person who has left the Haotian continent. What does it have to do with me whether the Haotian continent is quiet or not? Am I right?" Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. "That's right." Leng Xiaoxiao nodded gloomily. He had finally realized what was going on. Had he said the wrong thing? She was not interested in the peace and quiet of Haotian continent, nor did she want to be a savior, but she was very interested in Sun Tao. Now, he finally understood what Leng Ruoxue meant. Sun Tao still had to be eliminated. After he came to his senses, Leng Xiaoxiao did not say a word and waited for Leng Ruoxue's next words with anticipation. "He'll have to trouble the two of you to send a message to the families that were persecuted by Sun Tao and invite them to the Leng family to discuss this matter." Leng Ruoxue said to Leng Xiaoqing and Leng Xiaoxiao with a smile. "What do you want to do?" The two of them asked curiously. "Of course I'm here to discuss business with them. You guys don't think I'm doing this for free, do you?" Leng Ruoxue smiled ambiguously. She would not help others to take back their territory for nothing. One should know that no one would treasure something that was obtained too easily. "Thanks, I'll send someone to inform the great clans." When Leng Xiaoqing heard this, he immediately understood what Leng Ruoxue meant. It looked like this little girl was planning to make a huge profit. "I'm sorry to trouble you." Leng Ruoxue was in a good mood. She found Leng Xiaoqing much more pleasing to the eye. "It's no trouble at all." After Leng Xiaoqing finished speaking, he turned and ran. If he stayed any longer, he might fall into this girl's trap. Oh my God! This girl was a terrifying vampire. Leng Xiaoqing's heart ached. Upon seeing this, Leng Xiaoxiao also left. The mother parasol tree could not help but chuckle as she watched the two of them leave as if they had seen a ghost. "Little girl, you've scared them. What's there to be afraid of? Do they really think him their savior?" Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She had always firmly believed that there was nothing in this world that could be obtained without effort. If one wanted to obtain something that one had high hopes for, one would naturally have to pay the price. As for whether they were willing to pay the price, it naturally depended on the person. After Leng Xiaoqing sent out the message, the first to send someone over was the Lan family. Leng Ruoxue only knew Lan Lai as the representative of the Lan family. The rest of them were unfamiliar to her. They were definitely not the Lan family elders that she had bullied before. After seeing Leng Ruoxue, Lan Lai was as warm as ever. He even asked about Bing Yao. One had to know that he had been thinking about Bing Yao all these years. He didn't know if that little thing missed him. However, Leng Ruoxue told him regretfully that Bing Yao had been in closed-door cultivation ever since she went to the God world. She probably did not have the time to miss him. Lan Lai's face fell when he heard this. It was obvious that he had suffered a heavy blow. Seeing that Lan Lai was still the same as before and didn't seem to have changed much, Leng Ruoxue felt a sense of familiarity. Even her tone when speaking to Lan Lai had become much gentler. Seeing this, Leng Wudi laughed bitterly in his heart. "It seems like Xue is still angry with me. That little girl wasn't even angry with the old ancestor anymore, but she kept on being angry with the mother and son, and ignored them. This made him and his mother very worried. The main culprit was obviously the old ancestor, so why did Xue only hate the mother and son? This was too unfair." Leng Wudi felt a little disgruntled. However, he knew that this was because Xue had acknowledged them. That was why she was even more angry at their actions. As he watched Leng Ruoxue and Lan Lai chatting happily, he felt a deep sense of regret. They were even more envious and jealous of Lan Lai. However, Lan Lai and Leng Ruoxue had clearly ignored Leng Wudi, who was constantly emitting a resentful aura, and were chatting happily. Leng Ruoxue had even specially mentioned Netherblue. When Lan Lai heard that Leng Ruoxue had met Lan Ming in the God world, he immediately requested that Leng Ruoxue bring him to the God world to have some fun. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue sized up Lan Lai. If he were to go to the divine realm with his strength at the level of a mystical emperor, in addition to his somewhat carefree character, you really want to go to the divinity? Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and asked as she glanced at Lan Lai. I do want to, but I definitely can't go to the divine realm with my strength. Xue, in the future when I can also go to the divine realm, you have to take care of me. I can't let others bully me." Lan Lai requested with a smile. "No problem. But if you want to go now, I can take you there." Leng Ruoxue thought for a while and couldn't help but think to herself, if I bring this guy to the divine world, Blue Nether should be very happy, right? Thinking of Lan Ming's hesitant expression before she left, Leng Ruoxue knew that Lan Ming also wanted her to take care of the Lan family, but he was too embarrassed to ask because there were too many things. She felt that since she had already taken in Lan Ming, she naturally didn't care about Lan Lai. Lan Lai's eyes went wide when he heard her. He asked in disbelief, "Xue, can you really take me there now?" "As long as you want to." Leng Ruoxue smiled. "I want it. Of course I want it." But Lan Lai was a little hesitant. As the young master of the Lan family, he couldn't leave so easily. Although he didn't care about the title of the young master of the Lan family, he still had to consider what that old man thought. Can't bear to part with the Lan family? Leng Ruoxue was well aware that the Lan family was different from the Leng family. Even though she didn't admit that she was a member of the Leng family, she was still a member of the Lung family in the eyes of outsiders. So it was only natural for her to take the members of the Lung family with her when she left Haotian continent. However, the Lan family had nothing to do with her. She couldn't possibly take all the members of the Lan family with her just because Lan Lai couldn't bear to do it, right? That was obviously not realistic. Besides, she had robbed the Lan family of a lot of money back then. Some of the Lan family members might still see her as an enemy. Chapter 26-28. You have an opinion? 1. It's not entirely the Lan family. Lan Lai said, a little embarrassed. His heart was in a deep dilemma. He only had feelings for certain members of the Lan family, and these people were enough to influence his thoughts of staying in the Lan family. I understand. Lung Ruoxue patted Lan Lai's shoulder to show her understanding. Hearing this, Lan Lai became even more depressed. How he wished he could be as carefree as Shuer. However, with his family dragging him down, that idea was clearly an impossible dream. Lan Lai, who had returned to his room after his conversation with Lung Ruoxue, was deeply worried. At that moment, a middle-aged man pushed the door open and entered. Lan Lai quickly stood up and greeted him respectfully. Old ancestor. Sit down. That girl was Lung Ruoxue? The Lung family sent a letter to us because of her? As soon as the middle-aged man sat down, questions shot at Lan Lai like a cannon. Lan Lai didn't know which one to answer first. After some thought, Lan Lai nodded. She is Lung Ruoxue. As for whether the Lung clan sent us the letter because of her, I'm not sure. Lan Lai knew that Lung Ruoxue was quite famous in the Lan family. This was why the grand ancestor, who had not come out of his closed-door cultivation for a long time, had heard of her. However, he was not sure if the grand ancestor would make things difficult for her because of what Shuer had done to the Lan family in the past. However, he knew very well that if the grand ancestor made things difficult for Lung Ruoxue would definitely not be the one to suffer. After some thought, Lan Lai couldn't help but remind him, Ancestor, Shuer has just returned from the divine realm. The reason why he said this was because he hoped that the old ancestor would not act rashly. After all, Shuer was someone who had gone to the divine world. She was so powerful that even the old ancestor would not be a match for her. I know, the middle-aged man nodded, then turned to the serious-looking Lan Lai. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble for that girl because of what happened in the past. Some people in the Lan family are blind, so you can't blame anyone else. Lan Lai was relieved to hear that. In reality, even if he had not reminded her, this Lan family's old grandmadam clearly had no intention of making things difficult for Lung Ruoxue. He was not a fool with no judgment. From the Lung family's attitude towards Lung Ruoxue, he knew that this little girl was not to be trifled with. Moreover, to be able to go to the divine realm and return safely, this in itself also showed that this girl was a capable person. Everyone had to respect the strong. In just a short meeting, the Lan family's old ancestor had identified Lung Ruoxue as a powerful cultivator. Now, that powerful cultivator was willing to interact with them on an equal footing without putting on any airs. He believed that this was all due to Lan Lai's efforts. The Lan family's old ancestor glanced at Lan Lai and couldn't help but say enviously, You've made a good friend, liar. You have to get along well with him. Yes, I will. Lan Lai nodded blankly. He thought to himself, would he dare to not get along well with Shuer? That girl was fierce. He was no match for him, and he knew his own limits. After saying this, the Lan family's old ancestor turned around and left in relief. Lan Lai was still at a loss as he watched his ancestor leave. What was this situation? Did old grandmadam come to his room just to tell him to get along well with Shuer? This was such a fantasy. Lan Lai didn't understand, so he stopped thinking about it. At the same time, the parasol tree that was sitting in the snow garden smiled at Lung Ruoxue and said, that Lan clan's old ancestor is quite self-aware. What? Lung Ruoxue did not understand the mother parasol tree's words and could only look at her with a puzzled expression. Ha! The Lan family's ancestor told Lan Lai to get along with you. He must have noticed that you're not ordinary. The mother parasol tree smiled slyly. Thanks. Leng Ruoxue was speechless when she heard this. In fact, she wanted to say that she had made many great achievements in Haotian continent, and it was not a big deal that some people were still afraid of her. But looking at the mother parasol tree, it was obviously very surprised. Then she heard the mother parasol tree say, "Little girl, it seems that no matter where you are always restless." Was this a compliment? Senior, I'm very well behaved. Leng Ruoxue said, feeling wronged. All right. You're so well behaved that you've already made everyone tremble in fear. Ha. The mother parasol tree laughed evilly. Hearing her words, Leng Ruoxue could only feel helpless. However, she could not deny that the mother parasol tree's words made no sense. This fact made her quite depressed. The mother parasol tree could tell that Leng Ruoxue was a little depressed, so it stopped teasing her. However, it was rare for the parasol tree to see such an expression on Leng Ruoxue's face, so it still laughed unkindly. In the next few days, the representatives of the major forces arrived one after another. After they had moved into the Leng family's guest house, the representatives of the various forces had communicated with each other in private. Although they knew that the Leng family had invited them here to discuss the matter of Sun Tao and the others, they did not know how they would discuss it. With a hint of curiosity, after waiting for a few more days, the representatives of the major forces finally arrived. After everyone was gathered, Leng Xiaoqing personally went to look for Leng Ruoxue to inform her of the matter. When Leng Ruoxue heard that the representatives of the various major factions had arrived, she requested Leng Xiaoqing to arrange for all the representatives to attend the meeting in the meeting hall 3 days later. Even though Leng Xiaoqing did not understand why Leng Ruoxue had arranged for the meeting to be held 3 days later, he still immediately sent someone to inform the various major representatives of this news. After he left, the mother parasol tree asked Leng Ruoxue with a puzzled look, "Shuer, why is the meeting only 3 days later? Isn't it better to solve the problem earlier?" Senior, you don't understand the evil nature of humans. If we hold a meeting immediately, some people will think that we urgently need them to express their stance. I set the meeting 3 days later to let them know that this matter is not urgent for us at all. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. Aya, humans are indeed cunning. When the mother parasol tree heard this, it said fearfully, I can't help it. There are too many people in this world who want to get something without working. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. That's true. Shuer, you have to think about it before the meeting. There will definitely be people who will object to your proposal. The mother parasol tree could not help but remind him. Don't worry, I've already thought about it. Leng Ruoxue said confidently. And these 3 days were an unspeakable torment for the major forces. They had thought that once they arrived at the Leng family's residence, the other party would eagerly tell them the plan. Who knew that the other party wasn't in a hurry at all, and the Leng family members even acted as if nothing had happened and did what they had to do. As a result, many representatives couldn't keep their cool anymore. They couldn't figure out what the Leng family was thinking. The 3 days passed by like a year for the representatives of the major forces. The meeting was held in the largest chamber of the Leng family. After the various representatives took their respective seats according to the size of their respective factions, they all turned their gazes toward Leng Xiaoqing, who was sitting at the main seat. Chapter 26-29. You have an opinion? 2. Leng Xiaoqing coughed twice. He was not used to being the center of attention for a moment. However, he was a superior after all, so he quickly adjusted his depressed state of mind and said to the people present with a serious look, I know that everyone is very anxious about this meeting. Let's officially start the meeting now. After he finished his opening remarks, he gave Leng Xiaoxiao a look. Leng Xiaoxiao nodded and said, Everyone, I've invited you here today to discuss how to deal with Sun Tao and his group. Senior, if you have something to say, you can just say it. The Lan family's old ancestor said sensibly after hearing Leng Xiaoxiao's words. He knew that the two brothers had been building the business for a long time, and what they said would definitely not satisfy all the forces. Moreover, he wanted to befriend the Leng family, so he naturally had to help them at this time. Senior, If you have any good ideas, just tell us. If it's feasible, we won't object. Another representative immediately expressed his opinion. Leng Xiaoxiao frowned when he heard this. He thought to himself, if my method was so easy to open up, would I still need to be so conflicted? To be honest, he had never asked someone for such a thing so directly in his life. Generally speaking, even if there were some transactions between the major forces, most of them would be rather subtle. But now, what he wanted to say was, if you want to deal with Sun Tao, you just have to pay a certain reward. He really couldn't bring himself to say such words. Just as Leng Xiaoxiao was in a dilemma, a light and crisp voice was heard in the meeting hall. I can help you deal with Sun Tao, but you have to pay me a certain amount. Along with the voice, two extremely beautiful women entered. Among these forces, most of them had only heard of Leng Ruox's name. Not many of them had seen her in person. Therefore, many of them were shocked and surprised by the arrival of these two stunning beauties. When someone saw Leng Ruoxue and the mother parasol tree, he immediately said, do you know how many powerhouses Sun Tao has around him? Even if all of us join forces, we don't dare to say that we can deal with Sun Tao. Do you think a weak woman like you can deal with Sun Tao and the others? The person who spoke had never met Leng Ruoxue before. However, Leng Ruoxue was not angry after hearing his words. Instead, she smiled and said, in the entire Haotian continent, if even I can't deal with Sun Tao, then there's really no one who can do anything to him. Do you believe me? I don't believe it. The man was very honest. It doesn't matter if you don't believe it as long as someone does. Leng Ruoxue smiled and turned to the others. Trust me, as long as you pay me a certain amount of money, you'll be able to deal with Sun Tao. How do you want to deal with Sun Tao and the rest? The Lan family's old ancestor could not help but ask curiously. He naturally believed in Leng Ruox's strength, so he really wanted to know how Leng Ruoxue would deal with Sun Tao. All the powerhouses in the Haotian continent could not do anything to Sun Tao. If Leng Ruoxue did not give an explanation, it would not be easy to earn the reward. That will depend on how many of you are willing to ask me for help. If all the forces have hired me, I'll naturally exterminate you and return peace to the Haotian continent. However, if only a portion of the forces have such a request, then I will only guarantee the safety of the forces that are paying the reward. As for the other forces, they can only hope for the best. Leng Ruoxue chuckled lightly. Thanks, her words were very clear, and the major forces also understood. What the other party meant was that if she wanted to get rid of Sun Tao, all the major forces on the Haotian continent had to pay. Otherwise, she would only care about the safety of the forces who paid. In that case, the other forces would naturally be in a worse situation than now. Ruthless. How ruthless! It was obvious that he wanted all the forces to hire her. Otherwise, those forces that were reluctant to spend money would definitely suffer from Sun Tao's violent revenge, and the consequences would naturally be imaginable. At the thought of this, someone asked about Leng Ruox's remuneration out of concern. 50% of all the assets of your major forces. Leng Ruoxue calmly stated the number that caused the various major powers to feel heartache. This is too much. Someone immediately objected. The price is clearly stated, and I'm honest. Do as you please. I'm only going for this price anyway. To be honest, I'm giving you a friendly price because I've lived in the Haotian continent for a few years. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. How many years did he live on the Haotian continent? What was the meaning of this? Some of the more meticulous people immediately grasped the main point of this sentence and secretly discussed it with their companions. I want to know, if we pay, how will you guarantee our safety? Someone asked. Now, everyone in the Haotian continent was in a state of panic. All the major forces were afraid that their territories would be taken over by Sun Tao. Therefore, they had not been able to eat well or sleep well all these years. They had been living like stray dogs all day long in fear, and they did not know when such days would come to an end. More importantly, who knew when the faction they were in would become Sun Tao's? After all, that guy was very ambitious, and the people around him were like fiends, causing unspeakable suffering for their original factions. I've said it before. If you all agree and are willing to give me 50% of your assets as my reward, I will naturally help you get rid of Sun Tao and all his forces. However, this is a treatment that only group purchases get. If someone is unwilling and cannot meet the conditions of the group purchase, I will not do that. As for those who failed to meet the conditions of group purchase and have paid the reward, I will set up a defensive formation outside your territory. With this formation, you naturally don't have to worry about the attack of Sun Tao and the others. Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. A defensive formation? Would that work? I've heard that Luo City already has a defensive formation. Isn't Luo City in Wen Yuan's hands now? A man immediately questioned after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. You're right, Luo City has a defensive formation and Luo City has indeed fallen into Wen Yuan's hands. However, the fall of Luo City had nothing to do with the formation. Leng Ruoxue said coldly. What does that have to do with? A traitor? The man sneered. It was no secret in the Haotian continent that there was a traitor in the Luo family and that he had led the wolf into the house. However, what he said at this time seemed to be a slap to the Luo family's face. The grand elder of the Luo family, who was sitting in the middle of the crowd, felt his face burn as he listened to the other party's words. Then he stood up from his seat and said loudly, "That's right. There's a traitor in the Luo family, and that's why we're in such a state. I want to remind everyone to be careful of the traitor. Otherwise, it's useless no matter how good your defense is." Well said. The Lan clan's old ancestor agreed with these words. However, some people were still looking for trouble. The man from before continued to provoke them. There's a traitor in the Luo family, and they've fallen from their status as a top family. I wonder if your master knows about this? She couldn't have forgotten about you guys on the Haotian continent, could she? Chapter 2630, You Have an Opinion? 3. What are you talking about? Master will never forget us. The grand elder of the Luo family roared. Ever since the fall of the Luo family, Leng Ruoxue, who was behind the Luo family, had been exposed by someone. Therefore, the entire Haotian continent now knew that Leng Ruoxue was their backer. As the grand elder of the Luo family, he could not allow someone to use his master as an excuse. "So, you really called me master?" The man said with a proud smile. "So what if you call me master? She's the master of the Luo family. Moreover, master standards are very high. Not just anyone can acknowledge him as their master." The grand elder of the Luo family said proudly. "I say, old man Luo, you've really lost the face of the strong. You've acknowledged a woman as your master, yet you're still so smug. Even if you don't find it embarrassing, I'm flustered on your behalf." The man said with a look of disdain. "You can say whatever you want about me, but you can't insult my master." Seeing that the person who spoke was obviously looking down on women, the grand elder of the Luo family was so furious that he could not hold back his anger. However, when Leng Ruoxue gave him a look that told him to calm down, the grand elder of the Luo family miraculously calmed down in the eyes of others and obediently returned to his seat. When the man saw this, he thought that the other party had retreated. Just as he was secretly pleased with himself, he suddenly felt the pressure behind him increase. When he turned around, Leng Ruoxue was already standing behind him. What are you doing?" The man's heart trembled for no reason, and his voice trembled. He didn't know why, but this woman gave him so much pressure. This was definitely not normal. "Don't be afraid. I just want to ask you something. From what you're saying, you seem to have a lot of complaints about the master of the Luo family." Leng Ruoxue's smile was rather amiable, but her gentle smile caused the other party's heart to palpitate in fear. The other party did not even know what he was afraid of. Of course, acknowledging a woman as his master, this is simply a disgrace to the strong. When the man heard this, he immediately gathered his courage and said, "Then what kind of master should I acknowledge so that you won't feel that I'm losing face for the strong? Sun Tao?" Leng Ruoxue squinted her eyes and said in a sharp tone, "What Sun Tao? Don't you spout nonsense." When the man heard the name Sun Tao, he was so scared that his little heart was pounding. He looked at the people around him with an uneasy expression. Seeing that they did not have much reaction to the woman's words, he was slightly relieved. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you should know in your heart. However, it's none of my business who you acknowledge as your master, but it's my business that you bully my subordinates. Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly as she grabbed the man's collar and pulled him in front of her like a little chick. Who bullied your subordinate? Don't you slander me. Everyone's eyes were watching. You can't wrong me. The man immediately cried out his innocence. Why was this woman's aura so strong? He felt like he was about to suffocate. This feeling was really uncomfortable. I've wronged you, do I need to? Oh right, I forgot to tell you, I am the master of the Luo family, Lung Ruoxue. Do you have any objections? Lung Ruoxue said with a smile that was not a smile. When the first elder of the Luo family heard this, he was like a proud rooster as he held his head high and puffed out his chest. He was extremely pleased with himself. The moment he heard Lung Ruoxue's name, the man, who was full of fighting spirit, instantly wilted. He asked carefully, You're really Lung Ruoxue? Aren't you in the divine realm? Why did you appear in the Haotian continent? Hee. Do you think that someone would dare to impersonate my name? I was in the divinity, but I heard that someone in the Haotian continent was bullying my subordinates, so I came back to take a look. Do you have a problem with that? Lung Ruoxue smiled as she retorted. No objections. The man immediately said, his entire body covered in cold sweat. Why was he so unlucky to have bumped into Lung Ruoxue? If he had known that the beauty in front of him was Lung Ruoxue, he would not have dared to bring up this killing god. Even though he had never met Lung Ruoxue in person, he had heard all of her past deeds by heart. This person was definitely not easy to get along with. I heard that she's also a killing god in the divine realm. At this moment, the man was filled with regret. Lung Ruoxue, who he had thought would not appear in the Haotian continent, had appeared without a trace. What should he do? He didn't know if he would be able to return alive this time. You really don't have any objections? Lung Ruoxue asked, seemingly worried. I really didn't. Ancestor, treat what I just said as a fart and let it go. I don't dare to speak nonsense again, really. I promise. The man begged for mercy. But what if I have some opinions about you? Lung Ruoxue said with a conflicted expression. The man was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He couldn't understand why a big shot like Lung Ruoxue would keep harping on him when he was just a minor character. This was definitely not something an expert would do. Absolutely not. Thanks, Ancestor, I truly know that I'm in the wrong. Can you be magnanimous and spare me? The man continued to plead, and his fawning appearance made everyone look down on him. However, at this moment, the man couldn't care much. Saving his little life was the most important thing. How much is self-respect worth? There's a saying that only women and villains are difficult to raise. I don't know if you've heard of it. So you think I'll let you go? I'm sorry, I've never been generous. Lung Ruoxue immediately rejected the other party's suggestion. Ancestor, I know I'm wrong. What do you want me to do to make you let me go? The man said with a long face. It's simple. Tell me about your master. I'm very interested in him. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. The man trembled when he heard this. He couldn't even form a complete sentence. Don't tell me you don't have a master. Lung Ruoxue warned indifferently and released some pressure. The man's face instantly turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. In the end, he couldn't bear the powerful pressure and cried, I have a master, I've turned to Sun Tao. After the other party had finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue threw him on the ground and stood at the side as if nothing had happened. When everyone heard this, their faces changed. They did not expect Sun Tao and his group to not only take over the territories of many forces, but also cultivate spies. For a moment, everyone looked at the people around them with distrusting eyes. They could not be sure that there was no one around them who had been bribed by Sun Tao. Once such a thought appeared, it was like a wildfire that started a prairie fire, and they could not suppress it no matter what. Looking at the distrusting expressions of the crowd, Lung Ruoxue could not help but sneer. This was the fragile trust in human nature. The atmosphere in the meeting hall was strangely heavy. After a long time, someone finally reacted and looked at Lung Ruoxue with a burning gaze. "Senior, what should we do now?" "I told you." Lung Ruoxue didn't want to repeat her words. "The Lan family is willing to accept your conditions." At this time, the Lan family's old ancestor took the lead and said, to him, money was just a worldly possession. Protecting the Lan family's status was the most important thing. "You won't regret this." Lung Ruoxue was very satisfied with the tactfulness of the Lan family's old ancestor and spoke in a very friendly manner. The Lan family's old ancestor nodded at Lung Ruoxue as well. Both parties had reached a preliminary agreement. With the Lan family taking the lead, the factions that knew Lung Ruoxue's strength were naturally willing to pay a certain price. They only hoped that they would not be harassed by Sun Tao and the rest. Of course, it would be even better if they could get rid of Sun Tao and the rest. However, from the looks of it now, not all the factions had agreed to the other party's conditions. The other party would obviously not do that. This fact made them very sad. However, they were well aware that Lung Ruoxue was not someone who could be manipulated by others. When Lung Ruoxue saw that things were almost done, she left the meeting hall with the parasol tree mother tree. She left the rest of the matters to Lung Xiaoqing and his brother. The two of them had completely become Lung Ruoxue's coolies, but they still looked like they were willing to do so. This was because this was definitely a good start for their relationship with Lung Ruoxue. After signing the contract with the various factions that had agreed to Lung Ruoxue's conditions, they brought the contract to Lung Ruoxue. Flipping through the thick contract, Lung Ruoxue nodded in satisfaction. Not bad, 2/3 of the factions had agreed to her conditions. As for the remaining 1/3, most of them were still hesitating. Hence, the Lung brothers gave the factions a few days to discuss this matter seriously. Fortunately, the representatives of the major forces who came this time were all masters of the family. Otherwise, this matter would have been delayed even longer. Many of the major powers that had agreed to Lung Ruoxue's conditions were urging them to take action as soon as possible. After telling Lung Ruoxue that some forces hoped that Lung Ruoxue would quickly set up a defensive formation for her clan, Lung Xiaoqing and Lung Xiaoxiao remained silent. Lung Ruoxue did not say anything. The atmosphere immediately became tense. After a long while, Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly and said, "They would rather I set up a defensive formation for them?" "Shuer, what do you mean? Didn't you say that yourself?" Lung Xiaoqing asked when he heard that. He was about to be confused by Lung Ruoxue. "Don't you want to set up a defensive formation for them?" Lung Xiaoxiao replied in confusion as well. However, it was clear that his tolerance for Lung Ruoxue's words was much higher than his elder brother's. Hence, his mind was still clear and he felt that Lung Ruoxue's words definitely had a deeper meaning. As for the deeper meaning, he did not know. Chapter 2631, Layout 1. It's not that I don't want to, but it's too troublesome to set up a defensive formation for each family. As a result, it will take at least a year and a half to complete it, so I'm more inclined to help them get rid of Sun Tao, the root of their disaster. That'll save us a lot of trouble. Lung Ruoxue smiled as she glanced at Lung Xiaoqing and Lung Xiaoxiao before she spoke. When the two heard this, they felt that it really made sense. However, not all the forces had signed the contract. They couldn't force all the forces to sign the contract, right? Instantly, the two of them were at a loss. Looking at the two's gloomy expressions, Lung Ruoxue smiled and asked, "What kind of forces are those who haven't signed a contract?" "Most of them are from small and medium-sized forces. They are not rich to begin with and are short-sighted, so they are simply reluctant to pay this reward." Lung Xiaoqing explained helplessly. If it were the major factions, they would be more willing to pay. This was because the top factions basically had no doubts about Lung Ruoxue's strength. However, the small and mid-sized factions were not well informed, so they did not know much about Shui Er's strength. Naturally, they were not willing to pay this reward so easily. In my opinion, it's not that those small and medium-sized forces are short-sighted and can't bear to fork out this sum of money. They're just too scheming. After hearing Lung Xiaoking's words, Lung Ruoxue could not help but sneer. You're saying that they think they can take advantage of us? That's why you haven't agreed? Lung Xiaoqing understood what was going on the moment he heard that. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed to be possible. But hadn't Xuer already made it clear? If not all the forces had hired her, she would not have done anything to Sun Tao and the others. Why were there still forces holding on to the hope of getting lucky? In this world, there were always some people who would not shed tears until they saw the coffin. Lung Xiaoqing was having a headache over those people's petty thoughts. He didn't know what to do. Lung Ruoxue nodded and smiled. Are those forces still in the city? Yes, they are still staying in the Lung clan's guest house. Lung Xiaoqing replied honestly. From now on, ask them to leave the Lung family. Lung Ruoxue said after some thought. This isn't very good, is it? They're all guests invited by the Lung family, and it's impolite to invite them out. It might affect the reputation of our Lung family if word gets out. Lung Xiaoqing said hesitantly. Why would a superforce like the Lung family care about the opinions of some small and medium-sized forces? After Lung Ruoxue heard Lung Xiaoking's words, she felt that it was rather laughable. There's no other way. I'd rather offend a gentleman than a villain. Some of those small and medium-sized forces don't have a good reputation. If we offend them, we might pour some dirty water on the Lung family. It's a critical time now, and it's not good to make too many enemies, or it will affect the Lung family's reputation in the Haotian continent. Lung Xiaoqing said helplessly. Don't forget that the Lung family is about to leave the Haotian continent. Why would they care about their reputation? Lung Ruoxue reminded him calmly. Lung Xiaoqing was a little embarrassed. How could he have forgotten such an important matter? They were about to leave the Haotian continent and would never come back. In that case, why should he care about what those small and medium-sized forces thought? With that thought in mind, Lung Xiaoqing quickly said to Lung Ruoxue, I'll ask them to leave the Lung family now. Those people were obviously treating the Lung family as a safe haven now. The Lung family really had no obligation to provide for them for free. Lung Xiaoqing then turned around and left to handle the matter. Lung Xiaoxiao had wanted to tag along, but he was asked to stay by Lung Ruoxue alone. Looking at Lung Ruoxue, Lung Xiaoxiao was very uncertain as to why this little girl had asked him to stay behind. He immediately felt uneasy. Thanks, Lung Ruoxue could not help but chuckle when she saw that Lung Xiaoxiao was a little ill at ease. Are you very afraid of me? I'm not afraid. Lung Xiaoxiao braced himself and said, no matter what, I'm still this little girl's ancestor in terms of bloodline. How embarrassing would it be if I were to admit that I'm afraid of her? I can't admit it. I can't admit it. However, no matter how much he consoled himself in his heart, his expression still revealed his nervousness, and cold sweat oozed out of his forehead. Damn it! Why did this little girl give off so much pressure? Seeing that he was being stubborn, Lung Ruoxue did not expose him. Instead, she waved at Lung Xiaoxiao, who immediately walked towards her like an obedient puppy. He whispered a few words into Lung Xiaoxiao's ear, and Lung Xiaoxiao's face revealed a hint of surprise. She then looked at Lung Ruoxue with an inexplicable expression. She thought to herself, no matter who I offend in this world, I can't offend this little girl. Will this work? Lung Xiaoxiao said with a hint of uncertainty after he heard that. This is just a strategy. Believe me, it will succeed. Lung Ruoxue said confidently. All right, I'll make the arrangements. Lung Xiaoxiao said with a nod. He knew that he could not reject this at all. Even though this girl had told him this in private, she was just giving him an order. She would not give him a chance to reject her at all. So he accepted his fate. However, after some thought, Lung Xiaoxiao could not help but ask curiously, why did you ask me to handle this matter? What he meant was, why didn't he tell his big brother? You don't look like a pedantic and rule-abiding person. You're the most suitable person to handle this kind of thing. Lung Ruoxue gave Lung Xiaoxiao an answer. However, Lung Xiaoxiao did not know if he should be happy or worried after hearing this. Why did this little girl's words not sound like a compliment? However, It seemed that he could only take it as a compliment. Otherwise, he would be depressed to death. After he found out the reason why Leng Ruoxue had looked for him, Leng Xiaoxiao left the falling snow garden with a heavy heart. As soon as he left, the mother parasol tree, who was watching from the side, immediately laughed evilly and said with a look of understanding, "Girl, you're asking him to do bad things, right? It's not a bad thing. It's just a small strategy." Leng Ruoxue said innocently, "All right. It's definitely not a good thing." The mother parasol tree sighed. Senior, let's just be tactful. There's no need to say this kind of thing." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. "That's true. But Shuer, the guest house is quite lively now. Aren't you going to take a look?" The mother parasol tree said with a mysterious look. Looking at the mother parasol tree's gloating expression, Leng Ruoxue knew that this bored plant-level ancestor had used his divine sense to investigate the Leng family again. Every time he encountered something fun, the other party would be eager to share it with her. Since Senior wants to see it, let's go and take a look. Leng Ruoxue did not have to guess to know what the mother parasol tree was referring to. Seeing how eager she was to try, she did not object to it. After that, the two of them walked towards the guest courtyard. At this moment, the guest courtyard was filled with people. There were representatives from various major forces who were here to watch the show, and there were also people involved. They were the representatives from the forces who had yet to sign the employment contract with Leng Ruoxue and had been invited out of the Leng family's guest courtyard by Leng Xiaoqing. Those people had already surrounded the Leng clan's members, led by Leng Xiaoqing, and were strongly demanding that the Leng clan give them an explanation. On what basis were they being asked to leave the Leng clan's guest courtyard? They didn't want to leave. Although the Leng family didn't ask them to leave the city was safer than the Leng family. They were also treated to good food and drink, so they were even more unwilling to leave. Chapter 2632, Scheme 2. Leng family's ancestor, we respect you as our senior, but you can't rely on the Leng family's power to look down on small forces like us, right? All the forces on the Haotian continent have always followed the Leng family's lead. If it weren't for us, the small and medium-sized forces, who supported the Leng family so much, how could the Leng family have such a high status on the Haotian continent? But now, your Leng clan's actions have really disappointed us. A middle-aged man criticized in an unusually agitated manner. He was so angry that his face and neck turned red. His words naturally received the support of many small factions. Because this person had said something that none of them dared to say. Leng Xiaoqing was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. He was a little regretful that he had been too polite to them before. These people had thought that the Leng family would not dare to drive them away because of their pride. Now, the Leng family was accused of bullying others. If it were not for the fact that the Leng family was about to leave the Haotian continent, it would take a lot more effort for the Leng family to recover their former reputation. But now, he really didn't care. They were about to retort, but before Leng Xiaoqing could say anything, an icy cold female voice rang in their ears. What's wrong with using your power to bully others? Don't you need the capital to bully others? Leng Ruoxue walked over leisurely. The people on both sides who were watching the show couldn't help but make way for her. When he saw Leng Ruoxue, Leng Xiaoqing heaved a huge sigh of relief. By the time she finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue had already walked to the front of the middle-aged man and continued to ask, "Do you think I'm right?" Tease. The middle-aged man who had been very brave when he was facing Leng Xiaoqing earlier suddenly felt the pressure on his body increase. He stuttered and could not speak. Seeing his reaction, Leng Ruoxue sneered. "After seeing you today, I finally understand why it's easier to invite a god than to send him away. We've already finished our discussion, but you're still staying in the Leng family. Do you want the Leng family to support you, or do you want to join the Leng family and become its subsidiary?" With that, Leng Ruoxue did not give the middle-aged man and the rest a chance to speak. She turned to Leng Xiaoqing and asked, "Does the Leng family still accept affiliated families?" "I won't accept it," Leng Xiaoqing replied without even thinking. At the same time, she could not help but chuckle to herself. This girl was really something. With just a few words, the guy who was making a lot of noise just now had run out of battery. When he compared the two, he suddenly felt that he was too useless. He couldn't even handle such a small matter. He felt very inferior. Did you guys hear that? The Lung family is not accepting any affiliated families now, so please leave the Lung family as soon as possible. Of course, if you don't want to leave, you can also stay in the inn in the Ao Han City and pay for your own expenses. Lung Ruoxue had made her words very clear. When the crowd heard her words, their faces turned even uglier. In fact, those people knew it was time to leave, but most of the small and medium-sized forces had brought many clansmen and subordinates to the proud cold city, and they were all elites of their forces. On the surface, those people wanted to be safe, but in fact, they wanted to stay in the Lung family to preserve their strength so that they would not be completely annihilated when they were attacked by Sun Tao. According to their thinking, since a super force like the Lung family had invited them here, they would not easily drive away the guests. As such, even though the discussion was almost over, they still had no intention of leaving. However, it seemed that these people had miscalculated. The original Lung family might not have chased these people away for the sake of their reputation, but Lung Ruoxue did not care about that. In her eyes, since these people were not considered her clients, they naturally did not have the right to stay in the Lung family after the matter was settled. They would also be served by the Lung family with good food and drink. If they wanted to treat the Lung family as a safe haven, they would have to see if he agreed. With her in the Lung family, it was impossible to support these idlers. Thanks, why are they allowed to stay here? The middle-aged man, who had finally managed to adjust his state of mind, pointed at the other factions who were watching the show when he heard Lung Ruoxue's direct order to leave. When the other forces saw that the other party wanted to drag them into the water, they couldn't help but hate the middle-aged man. Many people even cursed in their hearts. This is obviously your business, and the Lung family didn't drive them away, so why are you still holding on to them? They're my clients, so they don't have to leave. Of course, if you become my customers, you don't need to leave. However, you are not. So, please leave quickly. Lung Ruoxue said coldly. Can you not be so realistic? Are you going to drive us away if we don't become your customers? When the middle-aged man heard this, he immediately became excited and shouted. He felt that he had gotten hold of something that could be used against Lung Ruoxue. If such words were heard by the powers who were in the same boat as him, it would definitely resonate with them. This way, everyone would be even more united. Moreover, the middle-aged man believed that no one would not care about their reputation and would not care about being criticized in public. It was a pity that even though his idea was good, he had met Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue wasn't one of those sanctimonious fellows. To her, reputation wasn't a big deal. She didn't care about other people's opinions and only wanted to follow her heart and do things her way. It had to be said that there were many people who wanted to do this. However, not everyone had the confidence and ability that Lung Ruoxue had. Thus, Lung Ruoxue's casual actions would naturally be criticized by many people. However, she did not care. What's wrong with reality? Could it be that I'm kind by taking care of you people even though you're not my customers? May I ask what my kindness can be exchanged for? Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly and asked with a face full of doubt. You can earn our respect. The middle-aged man thought for a moment and quickly said in a righteous manner. I've always heard that only the strong are respected in this world. I didn't expect to hear another version today, where kindness is respected. Let me ask you, if I'm a complete mess of kindness and my strength is 0, I wonder what kind of treatment I'll receive? Lung Ruoxue continued to ask curiously. The middle-aged man was speechless again. What? You can't say it. Since you're speechless, then don't talk about kindness anymore. Kindness also depends on who you're being kind to. If I'm kind to people like you who refuse to leave, wouldn't I be asking for trouble? Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly. Men, send the guests out. Whoever refuses to leave, beat them out. Following that, Lung Ruoxue turned around and instructed the Lung family's guards. All the guards quickly responded, and then they all put on a stern face, looking at the middle-aged man and the others with a fierce look. The guards truly felt that Lung Ruox's words were more imposing. Now, the other party didn't even dare to say a word. Many people were so scared that they were like chicks that had just come out of their shells, and their bodies began to tremble. Satisfying. It was really satisfying. When they thought of the domineering aura that Lung Ruoxue had exuded, the Lung family's guards all puffed out their chests like roosters who had just won a battle. They felt that they must not weaken Lung Ruox's killing god aura. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing. Chapter 2633, Scheme 3. With this thought in mind, the guards would no longer be polite to those who refused to leave. As such, those people were a little afraid and all looked at the middle-aged man in unison. The middle-aged man was helpless and could only bite the bullet and say, "Wait. Wait a minute. We didn't say we wouldn't hire you. It's such a big matter. Can you give us a few days to think about it? All right, they'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, those who haven't signed a contract with me, please leave the Lung family. Otherwise, they'll send people to chase you away. It won't look good then." Lung Ruox's previous coldness was gone as she smiled. After she finished speaking, she turned around and left, just like how she had come. The moment Lung Ruoxue left, most of the people present heaved a sigh of relief. Some of them were already drenched in cold sweat, and their clothes were mostly wet. It was clear how much pressure Lung Ruoxue had put on them. Back at the snow garden, the mother parasol tree could not help but ask curiously, "Shuer, why are you giving them 3 days? After 3 days, some people might not be willing to pay you so much to hire you." "I know. I gave them 3 days to make them think it through. After all, my goal is for all forces to agree to my conditions, not to be like a bull, exhausted to the point of setting up a defensive array for them." Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. "I hope you can succeed." The mother parasol tree was not optimistic about the remaining forces. It should be known that most of the forces that had not signed a contract with Shuer were greedy, selfish, and petty. It was good enough that they did not want to take advantage of the situation. How could they be willing to share half of their assets with others? Wouldn't that be the same as taking their lives? Lung Ruoxue smiled but did not say anything. 3 days passed by in a flash. Lung Xiaoqing came to see Lung Ruoxue with joy on his face and went straight to the point. "Shuer, among the remaining forces, a small number of them have signed contracts with us. Those who have not signed contracts have also left the Lung family. Your words are more powerful." Lung Xiaoqing admired Lung Ruoxue a lot. When it was time to be ruthless, she was more ruthless than anyone else. When it was time to be gentle, she was equally irresistible. However, not everyone had the right to see this little girl's tender side. At least, he had never seen it before. Now, when Lung Ruoxue faced the Lung family, she still had a faint and distant expression on her face. He was rather helpless about this. "You didn't leave the city?" Lung Ruoxue asked indifferently. "No. It's strange. Those forces are staying in the inn in the Ao Han city. Don't they want to go back to their original forces?" Lung Xiaoqing asked with a puzzled look. "Are those guys really thinking of using this place as a safe haven?" Before we leave the Haotian continent, the Lung family will have a chance to make a fortune. Don't be shy about charging them, because they will need a lot of money in the divine world. Lung Ruoxue reminded him with a faint smile. "Don't worry, I won't let go of the chance to slaughter a fat sheep." Lung Xiaoqing laughed with a tacit understanding. "Oh right, there's one more thing. Those forces that have signed a contract with us are asking me when I'm going to set up a defensive formation for them." Lung Xiaoqing added after some thought. "Tell them to calm down. I will arrange this." Lung Ruoxue nodded. "I think some forces can't wait any longer." Lung Xiaoqing reminded with a faint smile. "We'll still have to let them wait. I only signed a contract with them and didn't take their money. What are they rushing me for?" Lung Ruoxue was a little unhappy. It was really hard to earn money these days. However, she wouldn't pamper her client. She had the initiative. "I think those people think that since you've signed a contract with them, you have an obligation to ensure their safety. Otherwise, Why would they be willing to pay you half of their assets so easily? At this moment, the mother parasol tree, who had been silent all this while, said with a smirk, I only signed a contract of intent with them. It means that they're willing to pay half of their assets to hire me. As for when I'll take action, it's up to me. Moreover, I won't charge them a single cent if I don't finish my work. So, in fact, our employment relationship is not really established. Lung Ruoxue explained. If those forces were to know what you said, they would most likely think that you are toying with them. The mother parasol tree broke out in cold sweat and could not help but ask. I'm not playing with them. I just want to use a more convenient way to achieve my goal. Lung Ruoxue said lightly. If the parasol tree and Lung Xiaoqing still did not understand, then they would be really stupid. Hence, the two of them could not help but shed tears of sympathy for those who had fallen into Shui Er's trap. Thanks at the same time, they rejoiced that Shui Er was not scheming against them, or else they would have been depressed to death. In the next few days, a piece of news spread to the city of Prideful Frost. All of a sudden, the people in the city were in a panic. Especially those forces that were related to the news, they were so scared that their faces turned as pale as paper. This was because the news said that the faction they were in had been attacked by Sun Tao and no longer existed. This news was too shocking. Although only a few of the small and medium-sized forces were attacked, Sun Tao and the others had not made a move for a long time. Now that they had made a move again, the meaning was self-evident. When the various factions found out about this news, they were like ants on a hot pan. They were so anxious that they were going in circles. Some people even strongly requested that Lung Ruoxue immediately set up an array formation for their factions. Although most of the factions had such thoughts, the people in charge of some of the major factions were still calm. They knew that they had to remain calm at times like this. They couldn't force Lung Ruoxue because of such a matter. Otherwise, if she were to shirk her responsibilities in a fit of anger, wouldn't they be the ones to suffer? It could be said that it was because of their calmness that Lung Ruoxue was satisfied with their performance and had summoned them in private. When the representatives of the top forces saw that they weren't the only ones invited by Lung Ruoxue, they couldn't help but feel puzzled. However, they were smart enough not to say anything and patiently waited for Lung Ruoxue to speak first. Lung Ruoxue knew that even though the few of them looked calm on the surface, they must be very surprised that she had asked them to come. Thus, she did not beat around the bush and said directly, I've called you here in private to discuss something. May I know why you're looking for us? A representative of a top force couldn't help but ask. I want to ask you about your plans for the future. Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. The few of them did not understand and all of them looked at Lung Ruoxue, waiting for her to continue. Do you want to hide in your own territory, or do you want to become a super force on the Haotian continent? Lung Ruoxue asked casually as if her words were as simple as asking what they were having for dinner. However, the expressions of the representatives of the top forces changed drastically when they heard this. Was Lung Ruoxue testing them? Were they afraid that they would fight with the Lung family or the Luo family? In fact, it was almost every force's biggest dream to become a recognized superfamily. However, to become a superfamily, it was not just about having money, power, and territory. It also required a certain foundation and enough reserve talents. A superfamily like the Lung family had to have at least operated on the Haotian continent for thousands of years before it could reach its current scale and become a superfamily on the Haotian continent. However, the Luo family was a special case. Who asked the Luo family to have a powerful master with a strong background that no one else could compare to. Then there was the Lan family, which, like the Lung family, had at least a few thousand years of history. None of the top forces present could compare to these three families. Hence, when they heard Lung Ruoxue's words, they sensitively felt that Lung Ruoxue thought that they were ambitious and wanted to take advantage of the chaos to fight with these three families. So, they were really wronged. The Haotian continent situation was so bad now. It was not easy to keep his family from being incorporated by Sun Tao, so he did not dare to think about such nonsense. Moreover, with the existence of Sun Tao and the others, the three great families seemed to exist in name only. These three superfamilies with deep roots and strong backings had all been forced to hide in their own territory by Sun Tao. The Luo family had even lost Luo City. Compared to these three families, they were even less presentable. At that moment, the representative of the top forces who thought of this immediately expressed his thoughts to Lung Ruoxue. Senior Lung, please rest assured. The Lung family, Luo family, and Lan family will forever be the three great families in our hearts. No one can replace their positions. We will not acknowledge anyone else, including Sun Tao and the others. You really don't want to do it at all. Lung Ruoxue listened to their confession and said helplessly. These people seem to have misunderstood her words. I don't. The representatives of the top forces shouted in unison. What if I say that the Lung and Luo families are leaving? Lung Ruoxue exposed. What? At this moment, the representatives of the top forces were all stunned. They did not understand what Lung Ruoxue meant. What did he mean by leaving? When Sun Tao's matter is settled, I will take the Lung family and the Luo family out of the Haotian continent and head to the Divine Realm. By then, the Lan family will be the only super force left on the Haotian continent. Do you understand what I mean? Lung Ruoxue smiled. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.